Members, the meeting is live.
Okay, we've got quorum according to our clerk, so we're going to proceed, commissioners. I'm very happy to be calling this meeting to order. The clerk has confirmed we've got everyone in the chamber, or the virtual chamber, committee room. Let's start with the land acknowledgement. So I'll ask the clerk to read that.
We acknowledge the land we are standing on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to declaration of interest. Do any of the commissioners have a conflict of interest in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If you could just raise your hand if that's the case. I don't see any hands raised, so we'll move on. Next item is the approval of the minutes, and so if I could have someone please move the approval of the minutes.
Denzelman and Wong.
Councillor Denzelman and Wong is moving the minutes. All those in favor? Approved. I just want to clarify, can everybody see all the commissioners? Because I can only see Shelley Carroll, Julie Osborne, Cynthia Lyon, Denzelman and Wong. So
yeah, I'm in the same boat, Madam Chair. We have mostly staff tiles on this view.
yes, exactly.
Not that we don't enjoy looking at staff.
Yeah, we're missing. So it's
Ron Lalonde. You can't see me because I'm on telephone only. I'm in a location that doesn't have sufficient internet bandwidth to do video.
Okay, so that's Ron. So what about the vice chair? I can't see the vice chair.
I'm here. I can see myself and I can see the rest of you. So
there you are now. Now yes. You're there. Okay.
See me? Okay.
So the only people I can't see, just so you know, is Councillor Bradford and Councillor McKelvey. Everybody else now I can see. So we'll have to figure that out. I'm not sure what's going on. Let's move on to kind of the meeting. I just want to take 1 second to acknowledge that last week a TTC staff was attacked, one of our own, and I want the board to know that I did call the staff individual. I'm not going to speak names, but and really provided our best wishes and our condolences to his situation. He's doing very well. He's out of the hospital, but it was a very unpleasant experience. So I just want the board to know that on behalf of the whole board, I wished him well, and I know that we wish him a quick recovery. Okay, so I just want to kind of go through some of the format issues. If you have a request of the clerk, please email the clerk. That is the system we have in place. So it's an open meeting, and as we go through the agenda, you will be required to email requests to ask questions or to speak. And I believe everybody has the email address that was provided to you by clerks. Each member has 5 minutes for questions to speak, and 5 minutes for questions, and also 5 minutes to speak. And the timelines will be adhered to. So the clerk will give me a 30-second warning, and which I will relay to you when you're asking questions or speaking, or I will say last question. If you wish to submit a motion on an item, please email your motion to the email address that you've been provided. So, and if there's any issues, just let staff know. If there's technical troubleshooting required, let staff know. So we'll now commence with the review of the order paper. Once complete, we will move a motion to adopt the order paper and all the items not held. As noted on the agenda, there are 2 timed items. Item 7, Embrace Diversity, the TTC's 10-point action plan and 5-year diversity and human rights plan. And item 8 interim report for the TTC's external advisor on diversity and inclusion, Arlene Huggins, who's with us today. I am holding both items in my name, and I'm proposing we deal with them together. So we'll start with the order paper now. We've got the CEO's report. We've then approval of the minutes. So to the clerk, do we approve those minutes now and then have the chair of ACAT speak after, or what's the order of that?
Hi, Chair. We will have approval of the minutes after the ACAT chair speaks.
Okay, so we'll just wait on that. So I'll hold that. And then we've got some retiring members, unfortunately, of our ACAT group. So I'll hold that item. Item 6 is being held for deputations. That's the investigative report. Item 9 and 12, both being held for deputations, the annual service plan and the schedule of meetings. So the rest of the items are as such. So number 4, please let me know, indicate by putting up your hand if you'd like to hold any of these items. Item 4, 40 Carl Hall Road Industrial Space Lease. And then maybe the clerk can advise me, because again, I can't see 2 of the councilors.
There are no hands up.
Okay, so that item, all those in favor? That's approved. Number
Aye.
5 is large litigation members. Would anybody like to hold that item?
Yes, Madam Chair, Councillor Carroll or Commissioner Carroll, I'd like to hold that one. Thank you.
Okay, we'll keep that in your name. Item 10, subway closures, 2020 review and 2021 forecast. Okay, I don't see anybody holding that, so we'll move that. All those in favor? That carries. A supply of Provost parts, number 11. Anybody want to hold that? I'm not seeing anybody, so we'll
No, I'd
dispense
like
with
to
that
hold
item.
that, Jay.
Oh, Councillor, okay, so we're going to hold that in Councillor Denzel Min Wong's name. Number 12, proxy to vote TTC shares in Toronto, the TCTI. Anybody holding that? No, I see no one holding that, so we'll move that. Anybody opposed? That carries. And then last is the audit risk and compliance report, flexible work plan 2021. Anyone holding that item? Seeing
I'd like to
none.
move that, Madam Chair.
Was that, that was Commissioner Lalonde?
Yeah, it was. I just wanted to move receipt.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Commissioner. So all in favor? Opposed? That carries. All right. So I'm requesting a motion to adopt the order paper and all the items not held. We kind of did that, but anyway, there we go. Okay, that's moved. So the first items we're dealing with, I believe, are items 7 and 8. So was item 4 was not held? Okay. So I want to just clarify with the clerk that are we moving into private at this time?
Hi, Chair. No, we are not.
Okay. So our next item is, can you just let me know what our next item is? The CEO
Chair, our next
report?
items are, no, our next items are items 7 and 8, the timed items being the Embrace Diversity report and the interim report from Arlene Huggins.
Okay. So we're bundling those two and we don't need to move into private.
Correct. No need for an in-camera session on those
Okay.
items.
Okay, so let's commence with these items. So item 7 and 8, Embrace Diversity, the TTC's 10-point action plan and 5-year diversity and human rights plan. So I believe our CEO would like to say a few words and address the board on this. So I will turn it over to Rick Leary.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning to everyone. You know, before I turn things over to our acting or interim Chief Diversity and Cultural Officer, Gemma Piemontes, as well as Arlene Huggins, our external advisor on diversity and inclusion, I wanted to make a few brief comments about these reports. Since becoming the CEO in 2018, I have been firmly committed to transforming the culture of the TTC into something that better reflects the world we live in and the great city that we serve. Central to that commitment is how we approach diversity and inclusion. Today, you have two reports that touch on the important work that we're doing in this regard. Both inform and demonstrate my commitment to changing the culture of the TTC and to make it more diverse, inclusive, welcoming, and a modern organization. These reports show, while we do have work to do to get to where we want to be, and frankly, we should be there, the TTC is striving to become a leader in these areas. You will see that we are having those tough conversations, both internally and externally, and we're taking on challenges in ways that few large public organizations have done. We've reached out to experts like Arlene and the city's Confronting Anti-Black Racism Unit for advice and guidance. Essential to the transformation is the work that Arlene is doing for us here today. In her interim report, you will see an honest and frank assessment of where we are on diversity and inclusion file. You will also see recommendations on how we build on the work we've done to bring about systematic changes in the way we want to see ourselves. When I brought Arlene in to advise me, it was for her extensive experience in this field, and it was exactly this kind of analysis. A large, complex organization like the TTC cannot possibly make improvements without a critical assessment, and that's what Arlene has provided. If we want to see change for the better, we can't be afraid to invite and accept the kind of analysis and the guidance that follows. To that end, I'm pleased that the agenda also includes the Embrace Diversity Report and the 10-year action plan, which helps guide our transformation. I know that we have our work cut out for us and to push ahead to match up the TTC workforce with the population that we serve. A key component of this will be ensuring that all of our employees feel welcome and accepted here at the TTC, and that all of our customers feel comfortable riding the TTC. We moved this forward. Earlier this year, I pulled together a cross-section of employees, including frontline staff, to advise on this very subject. The group was tasked with identifying things that the TTC could start doing now, right now, in response to the diversity and inclusion challenges we face. Specifically, the group was responsible for coming up with the 10-point action plan, 10 things that the TTC could do to really make change both internally and externally, and for something that we could be held publicly accountable. I'm fully committed to making the TTC a leader in the diversity and inclusion space, and I want all Torontonians to be proud of us and feel welcomed by us. So with that, I'm now going to turn it over to Gemma Piemontes, and it will be followed by Arlene Huggins. Gemma?
Madam Chair, we're getting no audio.
Well, I'm
Gemma,
done.
we can't hear you. Okay, now we
I'm
can.
sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
I'm sorry. I had my mic off. It was great what I said. At the risk of repeating myself, I'm going to touch on a little bit about what Rick has already said. But what I'm about to say is really just to briefly summarize our Embrace Diversity and 10-point action plan. But I do want to start off by saying that it really does take a forward-thinking leader, not only to recognize, but to act on what is a problem in our organization. For the sake of transparency and accountability, this report highlights the need for change, not based on anecdotal information, but one based on statistics, the Toronto Ombudsman's recommendations, and third-party assessments. It's a stark reality that cannot be ignored. We have a workforce that is committed to driving the change that our CEO speaks of with much passion. Acknowledging there is a history of systemic racism and bias requires us to focus on implementing targeted initiatives that will create a culture of inclusiveness, respect, and dignity that is free from harassment or discrimination. This includes having a workforce that is representative of the community that we serve. But to drive this change in a way that is meaningful and one that produces results, the 10-point action plan was developed to achieve our objectives around diversity and inclusion, while the broader 5-year Diversity and Human Rights Plan identifies the long-term objectives. We know that progress has been slower than ideal, but with the proper resourcing and guidance from our external stakeholders, we are confident in our ability to move the needle forward. I will now turn it over to Arlene. Is that okay, Rick? Who will address the anti-racism strategy review.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Gemma. I am going to be brief and leave open any questions. My report is before you, and hopefully you've had an opportunity to review it. I echo Gemma's comments. The one thing I found in working with the TTC since March is something that, quite frankly, is critical to this type of transformation and work, and that is a will from the top. This work can't be done without it, and I am happy and pleased to say that I found that. And have found that throughout my work with the TTC since March. I think that as Gemma has indicated, work has been done, but there's still work to be done. This type of work is not short-term. You have short-term action and long-term action. It requires strategic planning and implementation, and the key sort of indicators of success is number one is strategizing. Two is implementation and action. But also you have to put in place mechanisms for moderating and keeping track of change. How are you doing? How is progress being made? Accountability, all of that is necessary. So the first thing I did when I started work with the TTC is just took a pulse as to where are you now, and that's the first part of my report, talks about sort of what I saw and what I observed when I spoke to a number of individuals, both staff, some counselors, staff, and management about various issues within the workplace. So I start there. And I have to say, started at a time when obviously the TTC was going through unprecedented challenge in dealing with COVID, and staff being pulled in all directions. I've referred to that in my report. So it was a significant time period, an out of the ordinary time period. And I recognize that there was some delay in terms of some initiatives that had started, not starting others because of this reason. But I do point out some areas where there have been lost opportunities notwithstanding, and areas where since that time work has also been done. I will comment, and Gemma has outlined in her report as well. There are still some outstanding issues from prior ombudsman's reports that have to be dealt with. I've referred to those in my report that still have to be worked on. But I think there's been things that have been worked on and things that have been achieved. One of which, and I discuss in my report, was, in my view, a critical necessity, which was the reorganization of your diversity area and separating diversity from human rights. They're two different things, and I think that your human rights group was just overloaded for a long period of time, and therefore there wasn't as much focus as there could have been on the diversity side. So I think that change and that restructuring that took place this fall bodes well in terms of the work to be done. I think also there have been some changes in restructuring to the revenue and the transit enforcement unit, the revenue protection and special constables, in part in response to the ombudsman's reports. both the 2017 and 2019, but in part due to a recognition of some of the work that has to be done in terms of the independence of that unit, investigations, complaints, public complaints and investigations, and the work that's been done to create that independence and equip those sections with the tools to deal with the public and the diverse public that they are dealing with. Sorry, I just heard something maybe question. Okay. So I think that has been a
Madam Chair, we've lost sound again.
Yeah, we've lost audio. Clerk's desk, Arlene, I don't know if you can hear us. We can't hear you.
okay. Audio just kind of automatically shut off there. I put it back on. Hopefully you can hear that. Okay. Sorry. So just to go back a bit, changes within the diversity group, but also changes in the transit enforcement unit to reflect some of the ombudsman's recommendations on dealing with the public in terms of complaints and investigations. And so a lot of the work that has been done has focused on equipping that unit, both revenue protection and the special constables, with the tools to deal with issues of racism and anti-Black racism in terms of dealing with a diverse public, and that's been critically important. So work has been done in that area. There's still work to be done. Some of the policy work is outstanding. There's a number of new hires that have been delayed that are now coming into fruition, both on the complaint investigation side and on the diversity side. There's a number of vacancies within the diversity group that are now being filled. And I think that's going to work, bode well for a quicker pace and a more sustained progress on these issues. I think one of the last things I want to talk about is two things actually. Training. I speak a lot about training in my report. The training in respect to the anti-racism, anti-Black racism training has been started, but is far from finished. It will be a challenge. I think there is now the start of a plan. I think that plan's been delayed. It's a logistical, as you well know, logistical difficulties involved in training, and a strategic plan has to be in place to get this done. Your cultural change is not going to be achieved just from the top. Cultural change has to come from the top, and it also has to come from the bottom, from your employees. And I think this training is instrumental. The city's Confronting Anti-Black Racism unit has been providing a lot of assistance to you, but that's not going to get you through training of your 16,000 employees. And there will be other strategies that are now being put into place to address that with external facilitators and training your own staff to do some of that training. So I think those are going to be key areas that have to be addressed to move forward. The last part I want to talk about is communication, which is critical to TTC in this area. You're doing good work. There's still things to be done, but I think you have to let the public know how you're doing along the way and what you're achieving along the way. And a communication strategy is now in place that I've been able to review in the last few weeks that really does highlight what needs to be done from a communications piece, both internally and externally, to bring your successes to your employees, to make sure they know the commitment is there and steps are being taken, to let them in on the steps so that they feel that they've been, that they're coming along as you come along and are excited about the changes. But also the public. The public needs to know what you're doing and how you're doing it. And I think the communications piece that I've seen now does deal with that strategy in terms of both media, press media, social media, and a number of different action items to bring those messages to the public. So I think, in summary, I'll say there has been some delay for various reasons, including COVID. But I think there have been some progress in trying to deal with the impediments to the delay and to be able to move forward. Again, this is a long-term strategy. It's not going to happen overnight. But I certainly think we're at a point where you're seeing some tangible results from the work that you're doing. And so I'm going to end it there. And of course, if there are any questions, I'm happy to remain online to speak to them.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and to Rick and Gemma. I just want to remind board members that we will call on members in the order that you have emailed your requests to question or speak. So right now we've got Commissioner Lai emailed us first. So I think you have a question, I believe, Commissioner Lai.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for the really very, very comprehensive report. Since my focus has always been in diversity and inclusion, I just like to ask a couple of questions of staff on this. I read in the report that the recent town hall with the potential women employees that are 1,500 attendees and really well attended, and congratulations on doing such a great job and a very good start on that one. I just wanted to ask whether, well, the report said that you're working with a lot of stakeholders, there's going to be a lot of stakeholders engagement. I'm just wondering whether there's any plan in the future about hosting these events, maybe in different, working with the stakeholder engagement, and maybe working it into different, hosting these events virtually in different languages, so that people that might not have a very good command in English can actually be equitable in accessing of these jobs.
Marika, would you answer that for us, please? Thank you.
Hi there. Good morning, everybody. So with all of our events, we'll always provide accommodation as required. So with the women's event, we did have closed captioning, and we did accommodate people that may have been deaf or hearing impaired. And we do have a few breakout sessions that we're planning to do in the new year. And when we do those sessions, if accommodations are required, and we are doing some organizations where many of the clientele or many of the job seekers may have disabilities, or English is not the first language. I know one of the organizations is a group for Korean women, and I don't know if we have a date secured for doing a breakout session with that group, but if we do, I know that with that organization, English is not the first language. And it's my understanding that we'll be working with the organization to accommodate. They'll have an interpreter available as well. So that's typically the case when we go and work with other organizations. If we host it, then we'd procure the cost and we'd make that happen.
Okay, thank you. My next question would be, in the report, there's 10 actions plan. Action number 6, it says that review communication with a diversity and inclusion lens. Would this be applied to TTC customers as well? I don't think that your communication, the TTC communications, are in other languages now. Is the communication here, would you include TTC customers? Is that what it is, or is just internal?
Perhaps I can respond to that. Generally speaking, when we talk about reviewing communications with a diversity lens, it's an internal review that reviews your policies, communications plans, practices, with a view to determining whether, while on its face is neutral, there are embedded systemic barriers. So policies in terms of hiring practices or policies regarding promotions or acting positions. So that's generally what we talk about when we talk about reviewing material with a diversity lens. I think that your question, Ms. Lai, may deal more with translation type services. I think maybe that's what your focus is. And maybe that's a better question for Marika as to whether the communications plan includes putting out some of the communications in diverse languages.
Yeah, because communication to me is more than what it is. I know some communication consists of different languages, and I'm just wondering whether we're going to be doing some communication plan to reflect the diversity of the city. You know, this is what I'm reading it, so just wanted to clarify that. Thank you very much. Those are my questions, Madam Chair.
When it comes to communication broadly, we work with the communications department. And I don't pretend to be the communications expert, but when it comes to translation of documentation, or even when we post things on our website, I do lean on their expertise as to the best route to take in terms of making that happen. So, for example, if we were going to do any kind of virtual event where English was not the first language of the participants, I would lean on communications to assist with how we go about communicating not only our posters and flyers, translating the information, working with our closed captioner, because that would be a constant. But in terms of all of the documentation and the PowerPoint presentation and so forth, I work with them.
So, Councillor, it's Natalie Poole-Moffat, the Chief of Corporate Affairs. Through the chair, nice to talk with you. So we have been doing multiple, and we can get some information for you, campaigns in up to 12 different languages and targeting small newspapers and different areas of Toronto. We did that when we made masks mandatory to make sure that we really penetrated. And we've done that a few more times this year, and we're going to continue to reach out and ensure that our messages are going across several different languages. So thank you for the question.
Okay, thank you.
Very helpful.
We're going to move on to Commissioner Bradford for 5 minutes, Commissioner.
Thanks very much, Madam Chair. I won't be taking 5 minutes, but just a couple of quick questions here. Thanks to the TTC and Arlene for your work on this. This is just a technical question. I'm wondering when in 2021 we're actually anticipating to see the training rolled out. I noticed that there wasn't a date attached to that particular action item.
So maybe I can respond in part, at least, to this question. The training has already started. So the anti-Black racism training commenced really in 2019, following the Ombudsman's report. The most, and I mentioned this in my report, I understand that most of the training of senior executives has been completed. Also, various specific groups have been completed. So your transit enforcement groups, revenue production and special constables have been completed. The Black Employee Resources Group had that training. I think some of the service planning had that training. So various groups as well as executives. And I understand that the balance of the senior executives will be finished by the end of this year, December. They have some dates in November, December 2020. 2021 will be the rollout start of middle management, and they may also at that point in time reach some of the other the unionized staff. So there is a plan to, in recognition of the fact that the Confronting Anti-Black Racism unit does not have sufficient resources to train all of these employees, although Rick has somehow managed to use his influence to get them to add some more training to you in 2021. The plan is that you're going to be training internal staff within the diversity group to conduct that training. So you'll be using Confronting Anti-Black Racism facilitators. You'll be training your own in-house facilitators. But the quantum of employees is such that you're going to be also having to retain outside facilitators as well. Timeline, I think that the issue is they're still working out some of the logistics in terms of how these people are going to get trained. Right now, it looks like it's still going to be virtual. You're going to be in the virtual world for some time. And which is fine. Virtual training can be very effective. It's live training, but of a virtual nature. But I think that until you have the facilitators in place, the external facilitators in place and have trained those internal staff, I'm not sure you're going to have an exact timeline. And I think that's why there's no timeline that's presently indicated.
Thanks, Arlene. So this comes back on a semi-annual basis for an update. We would anticipate, as part of that update, getting specific details on the extent of the training, who's been trained, and what is still outstanding on that rollout. That would be included.
Through you, Chair, that is correct, Commissioner.
Okay, thanks. Another question, Arlene, I appreciate all of the work that you're doing on this. Could you speak to more broadly how your work actually feeds into the components that really comprise the 10 pillars of the action plan here?
Sure. I mean, the work I've been doing and focusing on in terms of the action plan is more specifically the work about recruitment, leadership. So the various endeavors I've been involved in some of the initiatives for the women, plans for the operators. I've been brought into that and looking at how we can achieve that given your existing operations, staff recruitment. I have been working a lot with talent management in terms of putting in place and talking about diverse hiring panels and reviewing job descriptions with an anti-racism lens to ensure that the requirements that you're including have been looked at in that vein and have been considered for marginalized groups and the type of experiences that the data shows they may have. I've been working with your diversity group quite a bit in terms of the work they're doing. I've been working with your investigation and complaints. The human rights has sort of been in the stead while that unit's being reconfigured. So I've been assisting in terms of the policies. I've gotten a whole stack of new policies that they've asked me to review. And these are policies regarding the public complaints and with a view to ensuring that the complaints and investigation of the public complaints have been looked at with an anti-racism lens to ensure that they're equipped to deal with issues of interaction with the Black and other racialized communities. So those are the types of things that I've been doing and looking at vis-a-vis both. It's kind of overlapped the strategic, some of the strategic plan issues, some are 10-point action plan issues.
Okay, that's very helpful. Last question, if I may. and this might be over to TTC, but basically all the things that we discuss here at the board and at the commission, after we review the different initiatives and all the work that's taking place, what steps, I guess, is the TTC taking to communicate this learning, these new programs, these steps and actions that we're taking to help restore and build trust and confidence in the public that we are responding to the challenges we're facing?
I'm happy to speak to that only because I've just recently reviewed the communication plan.
Great.
Your communications department. I'm not trying to take over the whole meeting here, but I've reviewed the communication plan, the detailed plan that your communications department has presented. I've given a summary of it in my report, but there's quite an aggressive plan in terms of both involving Rick as a spokesperson and your new incoming, soon to be hired Chief Diversity and Culture. That position has been is being hired. They're down to the last few candidates now, so those two will be key spokespeople in bringing the public into this. Speaking engagements, I know Rick has a number of speaking engagements planned for him. The chief will also, and the communication strategy includes both a Q&A type of format for media, press release, sort of what are the common questions that may be asked. So they've prepared that in advance. They've also planned to go to not only mass media, but also community publications. So the diverse community publications, both, whether it be within the Black community, the other communities within the city, so that they can reach them directly. There is some planned town halls, as we've talked about. So they've really approached this on a multi-faceted point of view to discuss exactly what you've been doing. Some of the things you've been hearing about in both this report and Gemma's report, and making sure the public knows what you're doing, how you've updated and revised your complaints process to be simpler, to be more user-friendly, how you've had talking about the training that your enforcement units are getting in this area, the anti-racism training that they've received to be more responsive to issues in the public. You're also working with, planning to work with a number of stakeholders, Streets to Home, various other programs where the community will see you. The community will see you out there engaging. And I think that's a big part of this.
Okay. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
If I may, through you, Chair. If I may, through you, Chair, I just wanted to let the commissioner know that I'll be giving regular updates in the CEO opening remarks or written commentary on a monthly basis on the progress and how we're communicating along as well. Thank you, Arlene, for that overview as well.
Thanks,
Okay,
everyone.
thank you. So we're going to move on to Commissioner Carroll, 5 minutes.
Madam Chair. Good morning, Arlene. First of all, the only thing I need to know, you've answered a lot of questions on the training, but the one I need to know about is frequency of training. Did you look at separating out roles, and some need to be refreshed more often than others, or are we going to have a universal refresh?
I can't hear the commissioner.
Commissioner Carroll, we can't hear you.
Off mute. Now, can you hear
No.
You're frozen.
me now?
Yes, yes. No, you're frozen. You're
I'm
frozen. It's a good pose, though. Strike a pose.
Okay, how about now?
Okay.
Have I thought out?
You're fine now.
Okay. So, I don't know how much of that you heard, and I don't know if my clock is starting again, so let's burn through
Yeah, we'll
this.
start it again, yes. Yeah.
Training wise, we've talked a lot about training. I heard the answers. What about the refresh? You know, corporations go through this and they tick the boxes and then they find they need to go back 10 years later because they didn't do refresh. Are we separating out various job descriptions and setting refresh timeframes for them?
So I will say the training plan is still in its infancy. I've received a very rough draft, and that has to be reviewed and finalized. But these are the issues we have to deal with. We have to deal with who's going to get it, when it's going to be done. How are you going to deal with retraining? You do need retraining. New employees are hired all the time. So training is not static, as you've noticed. Right. You can't just do it once and then you're done. So there's got to be a plan, not just for training, but there's going to have to be a plan for retraining. And that's not yet been flushed out. There are going to be more groups that you'll probably want to retrain more often. The transit unit. So groups in particular that are public focused. So the transit unit group, the revenue enforcement, and the special constables. There's a reason why they were done first. And they will have to be refreshed more often, in my view, than some of the other groups because they are dealing with the public. So certainly that's going to have to be, some of those are going to have to be prioritized in terms of which ones get it more often. But as I say, right now, the training plan is still quite rough.
Okay.
And we will be coming back with that once it's finalized.
Okay. So the other thing that I wanted to focus on is you can tell a lot from the workforce discrimination complaints, and they give you an internal view that might also help you to understand some of the problems externally. When I look at the table 1 in it's on page 2 of attachment C, which is workplace discrimination complaints over 3 years. And I appreciate the third year's 29 feeling like they had access. But could you tell us, as a board of directors, what we should take from this and what we should, draw a circle around and give special attention going forward in terms of our own oversight?
If you're looking at the numbers, and some of them have increased, as you've said, I think it does point to training. It points to training. It points to, and it's what I said earlier. It's not just top down. It's bottom up.
Right.
And your bottom up needs work. Your bottom up needs work. This is about training the workforce, training all employees as to these issues, to be aware of these issues. I was dealing with an example of an incident, which quite frankly is likely simply due to being unaware. A comment was made by one of your employees, and it's clearly something that they just weren't aware that the comment they were making could be seen as being discriminatory and racist, quite frankly. And that's about training. That's about training. And so really a lot of those numbers should reduce as you train. So as you train, you should be looking at those numbers and seeing whether they're reducing, and which is why the data collection part of this is very important.
Do I have any?
And
I have one other question, Madam Chair.
Yeah, last question. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if we should look at this chart similarly to some of the academic research that we look at, and because you interviewed them, you may be able to speak to this. We're told that statistically, part of the problem when you have deep-seated feelings that there is racism in the workforce, whether management or, as you've said, bottom up, often when you look at these complaints, we're at a point in time in society where the race complaints, they're actually not lower than the other incidents as they appear on this chart. The problem gets so deep-seated that people don't bother complaining. But in fact, it's just as prevalent as the other types of complaints. Do we have that challenge?
I would say every organization does. Every
Okay.
organization I work with does. There are ways you can address some of those things. The employee resource groups are a good
Right.
way. And you're revamping that. You have a Black employee resource group. There's a intention to formalize a policy around other groups and how they are formulated and how you're dealing with them. I think the encouragement of those groups will help. Collectiveness, being able to be not the only one is key to reporting, is key to people speaking up. And one individual may be concerned about speaking up. If you're in a group of 20, you may not be as concerned. So I think those are some of the initiatives that we're working on. And also mentorship. Mentorship is key. And that's one of the programs that I think you need to pay more attention to, because as employees, racialized employees and other diverse employees work with a mentor, they're more inclined to speak about issues that are arising with them. And that mentor normally would be a leader, someone in a leadership position. And therefore, that leader has the ability to do something about the concerns. And that will help as well with the reporting of those things that people don't like to report.
Okay, so
Thank you.
I believe, yes, thank you. So Commissioner Lai, I believe you wanted to speak, but I could be incorrect. Did you want to speak on this item? Could you proceed now? You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah? Thank you. Well, first of all, let me just thank, as a new commissioner, I'm actually very, very impressed on what we've been doing, the TTC is doing to on diversity. And you started off from the report in 2015, and you had a plan, diversity and inclusion 2-year plan, and now to revamp this embrace diversity. I really actually I like the term very much. You know, we don't, not only do we have a plan or a strategy, we have to embrace diversity. And I just wanted to focus on, you know, diversity is we need to all recognize that diversity and human rights are our fundamental values. And diversity encompasses a lot of different categories, you know, women, marginalized group, or maybe even new Canadians and ethnic groups. I just wanted to focus on. And I really like the way that you, on the plan, that you engage with stakeholders, because that's the way we outreach to those groups. And I just wanted to maybe perhaps when you're doing the plan, the actual plan, I think we should expand the stakeholder engagement to the ethnic communities, because, you know, there's a majority of people in the Toronto area, they're from ethnic groups, and very important that we have to keep them all together and kind of to make sure that we're all in this together. Also, I'd like to zoom in the communication lens, because I'm very happy actually to learn that we have done communication campaigns in 12 different languages, especially with the wearing of the mask. If we can do more on different languages and multiple languages in educating and communication with our customers, I think we'll understand each other better, and then that's how we can embrace each other, and then that's how they feel included. That's very important. And one other thing I think is very important is about the training. I heard that in your report that you focus a lot on training. I think we need to train how staff can work with each other under the diverse culture, because, you know, some cultures, they might not be as outspoken. Then maybe you know, you need to communicate with them, or you need to get things out from them in a different way. And we need to really do a big thing on how to avoid workforce discrimination and racism. A lot of people, they feel they are really not happy because they feel that they are being discriminated. And I believe that management staff from the top, you know, we have to train them how to not perceive to be discriminating against their subordinates. And we need to show that they are embracing diversity as well in the management team, because it really in order that we can successfully, as our CEO said, that we can transform the culture of TTC. Everybody needs to work together. Everybody needs to embrace each other's culture and to embrace each other's differences in order that we can be successfully to make this plan successful. So thank you very much. Those are my remarks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I'm going to move to Commissioner Bradford. 5 minutes.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I will be brief. I'd like to offer my thanks to Rupa, Valerie, Gemma, and really the whole organization for their work on developing this plan here. And Arlene, big thanks to you for your wealth of advice and insight, your thorough responses to all of our questions, and the work that you're doing to address systemic racism and improving our diversity and inclusion. I have a number of motions, 2 motions I'd like to bring forward to that speak to the communication piece and accountability that we will need in order to advance and achieve and realize our goals that we've articulated here. I think that, and this speaks to both items 7 and 8. One is considering options for communication plans on all of the 10-point action plan in our 5-year diversity and human rights plan. And the second is related to the budget on item 8 there. Yes, thank you. This is just to make sure that the CEO report with the 2021 budget comes back with any additional resources required to actually implement the anti-Black racism measures within the organization. So that's really a message about accountability. I think it's fair to say that this is going to take years to undo decades of structural systemic discrimination and racism. And I think what we have all learned is that's not just here at the TTC, that's across all of our institutions, historically, our agencies, society at large. It is the strategic planning and consistent effort that's actually going to drive the changes that we need to see moving forward. This year, when you reflect on 2020 as we're kind of turning the page and looking ahead, I think it's fair that it's been challenging for all of us within our own lives, within the workplace. We have had to think critically about the assumptions and that exist in society, and have really tough conversations about anti-Black racism. These deep assessments is what it's going to take to move us forward on tangible improvements when it comes to diversity and inclusion. I know I've learned a lot. I know you have all learned a lot, and we're all thinking very critically about this. As an organization, as the TTC, for us to undertake this type of steps that have been articulated in a 10-point action plan, I would also like to see us publicly communicating all the important work that's actually underway. As we heard, that this didn't just start last week. There's been years of effort underway already, but I think improving the communication and making sure that we're doing that in a transparent and consistent way is paramount to building the sort of trust and confidence that the public and our customers need to see in us. I'm also glad to see that there's a line item, frankly, for this in the 2021 budget. We will be discussing this further on Monday, of course, but I would like to request that the TTC report back on, the resources that are going to be needed to make sure that we're moving this forward. Accountability and resources are necessary to ensure that we're doing the work that's in front of us and actually getting towards implementation. I don't think it's enough to just moving it forward. We actually have to drive this and communicate the actions that we're taking to our customers and to all Torontonians, because this has never been more important than it is now. And I'm glad, as an organization, as the TTC, and as a city, we are taking the steps to respond appropriately. So that's it for me. Back over to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And I believe Commissioner Carroll, maybe you could just confirm, did you want to speak on this, Commissioner Carroll?
Yes, please.
This is your time.
Oh, awesome. Thanks. First of all, I want to thank Ms. Huggins for her work on this, and I know it's been thorough and across the organization. Just to illuminate the reason for the questions that I asked, I'm not going to move motions about them. I have motions later when we're dealing with the specific employee group, but I asked the question about refresh training because I think we have to wrap our heads around the fact that this becomes a part of our core business. And the motion that Councillor Bradford's just moved, or Commissioner Bradford has just moved, is terrific because we have to wrap our heads around the fact that there's a cost to that, and we need to start building it in, because you don't actually deal with this in one go. We just experienced ourselves as part of our own CABR strategy back at the City Corporation. Most of us have taken by now the anti-Black racism training module, but it's a module, just one. And you go home and you think about it, and you think about it, and you think about it, and you know you need to come back at it again. Things don't change because you sat somewhere for 2 hours or even half a day, as is the case with some of our employee groups. And so building financially for this to become a core part of the operation, I think, is really important. And the reason I asked the questions about the statistics is I am extremely troubled when I look at the workforce human rights complaints of how few are race-based compared with the others, because none of them is particularly large numbers. But you see, personal harassment complaints, sex harassment complaints in numbers that you might expect in an organization of this size. And I went looking for sort of academic research backup because I couldn't believe how low the race base was. Because if you have a problem in one area, there's a culture of I can say whatever I want somewhere in the organization. So why is it not showing up in that stat? Well, it's very, very common that when you have a problem this large in society, complaining just doesn't happen. Perhaps we're seeing sex harassment complaints in larger numbers, healthier numbers, because we've just recently gone through a whole societal period when people began to think, yes, I am going to say out loud that this happened to me and make it stop. And we have a problem in our community. We're one of the most front-facing organizations in this community, but we have a problem in our community if people feel a sense of what is the use in complaining when they endure racism or racial profiling in the workplace. And the statistics sort of look like that is exactly the case in our organization. And so, it's not uncommon. And so we simply have to knuckle down and go to work on it. But I'm comforted that Ms. Huggins is aware of that. And so she's not looking at those low numbers and ticking yet another box. She knows that one of the things that has to happen here are things like mentorship. Someone, your workplace partner or buddy that helps empower you to say out loud, a thing just happened to me that shouldn't happen. So I think we're on our way, and some of the motions that have already been moved leading to this point that mean we're going to get regular reports and renewals, and we're going to refresh the training. Make me happy that this becomes a big part of our work here. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I'll just make 30 seconds of comments just to really drive home what some of the TTC staff and Arlene said. I have to say, every time I talk to Rick, which is very frequent and quite often, he brings up these issues as a top of mind item for him to be dealing with as a CEO. So I just want to really assure the board that the CEO is this is front and center for him, and he's very committed to this. And like I said, I want to talk about automatic train control, but he's always putting this front and center as the thing he updates me on constantly. So it's really, I think the whole organization is embracing this. And I think it's at an exciting juncture where we're moving things forward. So I will be supporting Commissioner Bradford's motions. Those are good ones. And we look forward to further updates as this evolves. So now I will move to, I guess we'll move now to the report recommendations for this for these items. So if I could request a motion to adopt the report recommendations. Councillor McKelvey.
Is that
all
item
those-
7? Is that, what did we do? We just, the recommendations in 7?
I think they're, let's get the clerk to clarify that. Is it just, do we bundle them when we vote or are they separated?
Thank you, Chair. We'll vote first on Commissioner Bradford's motion on item 7,
Oh.
followed
Oh,
by
yeah.
the item as amended, and then his motion on item 8, recommendations item as amended.
Okay, so let's get the motion up on the screen. Can we do that again? Just to remind people. Okay, so this is item 7. The motion's before you. Hopefully you had a chance to read it earlier. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. And then item is adopted. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. All right. And now we're going to move on to the next item. So if we can again put on the screen the motion, please. So there's the motion. This is item 8. This is an amendment to the motion, to the recommendations. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. And item as amended. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay. Thank you very much. So we're moving on. I now am going to move that we recess as a committee of the whole for items 5 and 6. So I'm going to read that motion that the board recesses as a committee of the whole to consider advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, information relating to litigation or potential litigation, labor relations, and information relating to personal matters about an identifiable individual related to items 5 and 6 of this agenda. So to the members of public, we are now moving into closed session on the items I've just listed, and we will return to public session and the live broadcast at the end of this session. And just to the members, there'll be a pause now of 2 to 3 minutes while we make some technical changes to the video conference. So Janelle will let us know when we're back in action. So Janelle will wait for your cue.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Members, we are ready to proceed.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we're back in public session. Our first item is item 5, large litigation matters, and I understand Commissioner Carroll has a referral motion. Okay, so it's on the screen. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Item 6 is the February 7th, 2020 Incident Investigative Report. There are deputations on this item, and the clerk will read out the deputants' names. The deputants have 5 minutes, and then there's potential questions from the board. So I'll throw it to the clerk to announce the deputations.
Just one moment, please, while we get the deputants on the line. While we wait for the ombudsman, who's our first deputant, to join, we'll move on to our deputant, Gary Cluley.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Should I talk on the phone or into the screen?
We can hear you loud and clear through
Okay.
whatever mechanism you're using. You have 5 minutes.
I can put it on speakerphone, yes, and that'll survive, I hope. That I can.
Yes, go ahead.
We'll move on to our deputant, Gary Cluley. Go ahead.
Yes, hello, can you hear me okay? Talk on the phone or into the.
Yes, we can. Please proceed.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. I can put it on speakerphone, yes, and that'll survive, I hope. I should get off my phone, I think, right? And just talk to you folks?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, please proceed.
Okay.
If you have YouTube on in the background,
all right,
please
thank
turn
you
it
very
down.
much for inviting me. Yes, hello, can you hear me okay? Okay,
Yes, we can. Please
okay,
proceed.
okay.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Sorry,
Thank you.
sorry,
Gary?
Mr. Cluley. If you have
The,
YouTube on in the
okay, thank you very
background, can you
much.
please mute?
I should get off my phone, I think, right? And just talk to you folks?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, please proceed.
While we wait for that deputant to return, we'll move on to the ombudsman, Susan Opler. She's joined the meeting. Thank you.
Good afternoon, or is it morning? Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay? You can hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yes, okay.
I could, yes.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Through you, Madam Chair, I would like to thank the TTC management very much for inviting me to make a few brief remarks. I'd like to add my voice to the others who have said how great it is to see you back in the chair, Councillor Robinson. I'm here today because an independent investigation done for the TTC and not by my office found that over a $3 fare, roughly the cost of a cup of coffee, TTC Special Constable started a violent fight with a member of the
Sorry, can I interrupt? We're having
public.
a hard time with your audio. It's a bit sketchy, your audio. So
Let me just want to make sure I'm not on the VPN. Hold on.
it's a bit raspy. It's raspy is the best word.
I apologize. 1 second.
A little better.
Yeah, that was a bit better.
It might have been the connection of my headphones. How's that now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, thank you. So, as I said, I'm here today because an independent investigation that the TTC had done, not by my office, by an independent body, which found that over a $3 fare, roughly the cost of a cup of coffee, TTC Special Constables started a violent fight with a member of the public who appeared to be experiencing mental health challenges. And that finding was borne out by the streetcar video, which the TTC has publicly released in accordance with my advice. This is something, in my opinion, that should be of serious concern to the TTC and, of course, to its board of directors, which is you. As you know, my office and I have a long history overseeing TTC enforcement and working with the TTC to help it restore public trust in its enforcement personnel, specifically special constables and fare inspectors. TTC special constables and fare inspectors have a very difficult and important job to do. And most of the time, they do it in a way that the public is rightly grateful for and proud of. But I have repeatedly expressed my concern, both publicly and also directly to the TTC management and staff, about unacceptable violent interactions between these employees and members of the public. I have also made clear and attainable recommendations on what the TTC needs to do in order to exercise proper oversight, change its organizational culture, and improve its service to the public. I wish to briefly go over why the letter that I sent to you this week, members of the board, was not only necessary, but in my view, urgent. This incident on the Queen Street East streetcar last February was just the latest example where TTC enforcement personnel escalated the situation to the point of violence. Way back in January of 2015, there was a violent fight that broke out between two TTC special constables and two members of the public at Union Station after a hockey game. And that incident led my office to undertake a large and comprehensive investigation of the TTC's oversight of its transit enforcement unit. And we issued a public report in April of 2017 on that investigation. I came before the board at that time to present it and answer questions. In that investigation, my office found several serious shortcomings in TTC's oversight of special constables and fare inspectors, including in the areas of discretion in exercising authority, use of force, de-escalation skills, and interacting with members of the public experiencing mental health challenges. The TTC accepted all 26 of our recommendations, but more than 3.5 years later, it has still not fully implemented 12 of them. Since the release of that report in April of 2017, my office and I have reviewed multiple other incidents where TTC enforcement personnel used unnecessary force in interactions with members of the public. And all too often, the passengers involved have been marginalized members of our community, including people, excuse me, who are racialized, people who are experiencing homelessness, who have lower incomes, and or who may be living with mental health challenges or other disabilities. This is a systemic issue within the TTC, in my opinion, and it's one that the TTC needs to address on a systemic level. But it's also important, I think, to remember that these lingering systemic issues of inadequate oversight within the TTC also have direct consequences for the members of the public who are involved in these incidents. While restoring public trust in the TTC and its enforcement personnel is, of course, very important and needs to happen, the matter is bigger than that. Because when TTC enforcement personnel instigate a violent encounter with a member of the public, the impact on that person can be devastating. These interactions can cause significant lasting trauma on someone's life and can leave them feeling devalued and stigmatized. Toronto and its people deserve better than that. And it's time for the TTC to pick up the pace and take swift action to address these problems. Now, I want to say it is certainly true that the TTC has put a great deal of work already into changing its processes for receiving and reviewing public complaints about special constables and fare inspectors, and into how it's going to investigate those. Likewise, the TTC has devoted considerable energy and resources to its anti-racism strategy, working to address its diversity and inclusion challenges, as discussed earlier this morning with you by Mr. Leary, Ms. Piemontez, and Ms. Huggins. Just as an aside, I wanted to inform you as members of the TTC board that your external advisor on diversity and inclusion, Ms. Huggins, was recently awarded the Law Society Medal, which is the highest award that the Law Society of Ontario bestows. I agree with Ms. Piemontez and Mr. Leary. I agree with Ms. Piemontez that Mr. Leary is a forward-thinking leader, and he is committed to positive change. But I also agree with Ms. Huggins that cultural change has to happen at all levels of the organization. It can't happen only at the top. And honestly, I'm not so sure that the whole organization is, in fact, embracing this change. The bottom line is that this latest incident of unnecessary force used by TTC enforcement personnel is proof that the TTC has not done enough to improve its support and oversight of its staff in these very difficult and important roles. Systemic changes are urgently needed in the recruitment, training, job requirements, performance management, public awareness, accountability, and culture of special constables and fair inspectors at TTC. Training, ongoing training, is essential, and it gets a lot of attention, but it's not the whole story. There also has to be proper internal accountability. The evidence is clear. The TTC must continue to move ahead with determination and without further delay to change the culture of its special constables and fair inspectors from one of paramilitary enforcement and compliance to one based on rider security, service, respect, and dignity. Only then will we see a stop to these ugly interactions where TTC personnel are abusing their authority and violating people's human rights. As you can see, this is something that I care about. It matters to me, and it matters to my office, and it matters to the people of Toronto, because we all take great pride in the TTC. That is why we have released 2 separate public reports on this matter, and that's why I've taken the unprecedented step of writing an open letter to you, the TTC Board of Directors. My office and I will continue to push the TTC to do more in this area until we see meaningful changes made, and we will continue to work with them in a spirit of encouragement and cooperation while holding them to account. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I welcome any questions that the commissioners may have for me.
Yeah, thank you. We do have a question for you from Commissioner Carroll. Go ahead, 5 minutes.
Thanks. Hi, Susan. So Susan, I'm considering a motion about this and it's taking shape. But I'm wondering if you could tell us if you think we've got the 10-point action plan going on, so that there's sort of a workforce plan and a public plan. We've got an anti-racism program. We're going to have a lot of review of this particular employee group to make sure that they have all the tools they need. It's a very difficult time on the system right now to be doing this, but we want to do a lot of work. Do you think that at this point, rather than just receiving reports, do you think that the board, through a representative or whatever, should we take a more active role in this so that we're better tracking the progress?
You are the ultimate oversight, or certainly an ultimate oversight over TTC management. And so I certainly welcome your interest in and commitment to ensuring that these changes happen. They are closely related to, but not the same as the initiatives that you heard about this morning. It's up to you what you want to ask management for. The areas that I think, if you did want follow-up on, the areas I would recommend you focus on are use of force by both special constables and fair inspectors, exercise of discretion in using their authority, training and accountability for how these employees deal with people experiencing mental health challenges, and how they use their authority under the Mental Health Act to arrest people.
Right, mental health apprehension.
Really, really important. Yes, and then really, really important is de-escalation skills, training, and accountability.
Right. And I've been looking at models, and one of the ways in which this is done is putting together, at least initially, at least to kick off in the first year, a group that includes everything all the way up to board of directors and CEO or in a police organization and police chief, all the way down to rank and file, so that their perspective can be brought to the same table. And that's a model that we've seen in when police are dealing with similar issues and some other areas as well. You haven't, in your looking at the organization, in the investigation on 3 separate matters, you haven't seen something mirroring that. You haven't seen a sort of multi-stakeholder group that has endured and gone all the way through those 3 investigations. There's no continuous thread of all of those stakeholders getting together, is there?
No, I haven't seen that. And in fact, there's been some change, quite a bit of change in leadership in these groups, and you know, change is good. Change is part of life, but it works against a continuous thread of progress and commitment of the type that you've described. And I do think that a multi-level, multifaceted group committed to seeing these changes through could be extremely helpful. And
Okay. Thank
the
you
other,
so
the
much.
last thing I'll add to the list that I gave before, if I may, I think communication by the TTC about the role of these staff is essential. And I was asked months and months ago to comment on some proposed new uniforms.
Right.
And I had some comments because I felt that they were not sending the right message.
Yes.
But I also strongly recommended that they come to the board, because I think that things like that, which tell the public what these people are here to do, are essential, and the board should have oversight over those matters as well. I'm not sure, I don't believe that that's come before you yet, but I hope that it will.
No.
And I encourage you to focus on that outward-facing messaging as well as all the internal stuff that has to happen.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've got a question for you, and I was happy to hear you acknowledge the great deal of work that the TTC has done, because I really believe, being in this capacity, I have a bird's eye view to what's happening, and I do think there's great commitment to this. And I guess I'm not trying to pick on Councillor Carroll's motion. It makes me nervous, and I want to talk to you about that. And I don't, you know, I'm not sure exactly what she's putting forward. It's probably evolving, but what I remember from this previously is everybody, including you and the TTC board, and to some degree council, talking about external, independent, separate, outside of the TTC, you know, realm. And so if she's going to be suggesting, you know, I'm a huge proponent of a consultation and stakeholder engagement. But what makes me nervous is the fact that this exercise is supposed to be very separate. And so if we're creating some type of advisory or task force or committee, including the rank and file, do you have concerns about that? You would be the first person I go to seek that advice.
I'm sorry, Councillor, I'm not sure that I completely understand the question. When you say that something was supposed to be outside and independent, are you speaking of an investigation?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I think to address your question as best I can, I do believe, and we certainly found in very clearly in our 2019 report where we reviewed the incident on the St. Clair streetcar, that the investigations do need to be much better quality, and they need to be independent. Sometimes that means using an outside investigator, as they did here, and sometimes that means using a better structured and better focused internal group, and a lot of work is already going on to achieve that. But what I am talking about goes way beyond that. And it's talking about culture change, and it's talking about changing the whole approach to recruiting, hiring, training, job management, performance managing, and holding accountable special constables and fair inspectors in the way that they do their jobs. And I believe that that culture change will only work if it is embraced at all levels of the organization. You can't impose, you know how they say culture eats strategy for breakfast. As I understood Councillor Carroll's questions to me, they were about putting together a multi-faceted group to commit to making the culture changes, as opposed to anything to do with the investigations, unless I misunderstood her.
Okay, that's
I hope that answers your question, Councillor Robinson.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. That's helpful. I guess what do you think are reasonable timelines to shift systemic racism in any organization? Like, what's a reasonable timeline to achieve that?
I think I would have to defer to Ms. Huggins on that as your external expert on systemic racism. It's not something that I feel equipped to comment on.
Okay. Are there any other questions for our deputant? I don't see any, so we're going to move on. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
So the next deputant, hopefully we have on the line, I believe it was Gary. I don't know if we can get Gary back on. Are we getting Gary back on the line?
We have the deputy on the line. We're just unmuting him. Just one moment. Oh, somehow we can't unmute him.
Oh. Nope, can't do it.
Gary Cluey, go ahead. Thank you.
Yes, can you hear me, everybody?
Yes, we can. You have 5 minutes.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm here on behalf of the special constables who are the subject in part, or in the most part, of the report that is before you. I'll be brief, and necessarily because I only have a few minutes, I have to be blunt as well. Yes, can you hear me now? Okay, good. The recommendations placed before. I think I just said that I'm here on behalf of the special constables, Messrs. Patan and Smith. And I plan to address the report that is before you. The recommendations placed before you are only as good as the report that underlies them and indeed gives rise to them. Think of them as a structure whose foundation is the report. Regrettably, the report is flawed, incomplete, and in my opinion, capable of lending support to the recommendations. Accordingly, they ought not to be adopted without a further and better investigation of this matter. It follows that no discipline or other action ought to be taken against the special constables for their role in the matter. The investigation conducted by Reuben Tomlinson began as a consideration of whether or not unnecessary or excessive force was used on a passenger, primarily by the special constables. Reading the report and having reached certain conclusions regarding the force applied, quickly it became an analysis of why it was used. As you know, the report concluded that a kind of bias regarding those with a mental health condition was in play. The former, unnecessary use of force, was the predicate for the latter. According to the report, bias replaced justification. Unfortunately, the analysis of the use of force is mistaken and, in my respectful view, flat out wrong. Before any force was used, there ensued a 3.5-minute conversation among the passenger and the special constables, a long time in this business. Notwithstanding the passenger's behavior that led to concerns and complaints by other passengers who captured the attention of Special Constable Smith and directed him to the passenger, and notwithstanding the passenger's initial encounter with Special Constable Patan, described in the report as belligerent, the special constables remain calm. The word belligerent, as we all know, is derived from the Latin word for war. Nevertheless, during the exchange that followed, the report concludes that the passenger was guilty of saying only, quote, "You don't want to mess with me," end quote. Something the report concluded was non-threatening and certainly nothing that could have given rise to concerns for their safety, nor did it justify any subsequent application of force. In other words, based on the account of unnamed witnesses whose account is not summarized, the evidence of the special constables was rejected. Since he did not actually threaten the special constables when the passenger stood up, the report concludes that it was to exit the streetcar, putting an end to a conversation that included a harmless comment. She could not have reached that conclusion after speaking to the passenger. Despite repeated attempts, he refused to cooperate with her. I suspect he was busy preparing for other matters, including his criminal proceedings, wherein he was charged with assaulting and threatening the special constables. And in that proceeding, he admitted that he did both. We know this because at a public hearing on May 28, 2020, a short time after this incident, it was February 2, 20, when you might think he remembered what happened, the passenger appeared in court in Scarborough, in the Ontario Court of Justice, assisted by counsel, and agreed with the following. The prosecutor addressed Her Honor, a much respected and experienced justice by the name of Finnestad.
If you could wrap up, you have 30 seconds.
The Crown said, Your Honor, by way of background in relation to the first set of charges, on February 7 to 2020 at approximately 7:55, the fare inspectors and special constables went over to the accused. He was located at the back of the streetcar. Special constables approached and asked the accused to leave the streetcar as he could not provide proof of payment. The accused responded by cursing at the special constables and uttering threats of bodily harm, including, "You're not going to be able to walk when I'm done with you. I'm going to give you the DESAZ, D-E-S-S-A-Z, which is slang for I'm going to fuck you up," according to the Crown. The accused stood up and walked aggressively towards the special constables, who immediately tried to place him under arrest. The accused responded by throwing punches at the special constables, striking them several times in the head. His aggressive actions prompted one of the special constables to deploy pepper spray in an effort to effect arrest. They were able to get him under control. The judge then said, "All right," to the counsel, "are these facts accepted as correct?" The counsel said, "Yes, Your Honor." But then she turned to the passenger and said, "Do you agree with that, sir?" And he said, "Yes, Your Honor." This finding that there were no threats, that "you don't want to mess with me" was a harmless comment, is integral to the rest of the report. Because on the basis of that, she found that something else must have been at play that gave rise to the use of force. And that, of course, was, according to her, a bias against this gentleman based on mental health concerns. But she came to that conclusion without
Okay.
ever seeing him.
Unfortunately,
hearing him,
we're long over time here, so I have to, if you just have a concluding statement, please.
I will. What I'm trying to give across to you is that the finding that there was no threatening conduct, informs the rest of the report, and therefore it cannot provide a foundation for the recommendations that are before you. What's needed is a better, more thorough report, one which includes the advice of a use of force instructor and fairly puts forward the events that are before you. Those are my respectful comments.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the commissioners for the deputant? Seeing none, we're going to move to, I believe that was our last deputant, so we're going to move to questions of staff, meaning TTC staff versus deputant. So any questions for staff? I don't have anybody. I know that Councillor or Commissioner Bradford wants to speak on this item, but did you have questions, Councillor Bradford?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I actually just have questions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Great,
so,
just questions.
Yeah, thank you. To the TTC, could you outline the process for selecting Ruben Tomlinson to conduct the investigation?
Brian Leck, you have this one, sir?
Is it? Video, come on. There we go. So the process was this incident, as you know, happened on February 7. It was referred to TPS for review. They referred it back to TTC to have an external third-party investigation. Their requirements are that either certain professional standards, TPS standards, training be in place with the investigator, or a provincial level training through OPP, essentially be a credential of the investigator. At the time, Melody Jahanzadeh, who is an investigator at Ruben Tomlinson, was the only investigator available to TTC with those qualifications acceptable to TPS for an investigation of special constables.
So just to clarify, at the time of this investigation in February, this particular firm was the only one that was deemed accessible or acceptable between an agreement that we have with, is that with Toronto Police Services, or is that?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And
Technically the TPS board, but yes.
okay. So at that time, there was just this firm, and so that is why we proceeded with this firm. It was an option of one.
Exactly.
What is the parameter for the type of training that that these firms need to have? What specifically is that training, and why are there not more firms that have that type of training so they can do this type of work?
Well, currently it's expanded. We now have 3 investigators that have the applicable training. It's a requirement, as I say, of TPS, and that's something we can review with them. But currently, it's either the TPS Professional Standards Training, or it's through the Office of the Independent Police Review Director, which is again a provincial police oversight agency that provides training. So that's simply the agreement we have in place, and that can be reviewed potentially with TPS.
I noticed in the contract, it stipulated that the investigation was to conclude in 60 days. This was obviously quite a bit longer than that, nearly 9 months. Why wasn't this completed in the timeline that was outlined in the contract? And is that unusual? Is that typical? Why would we agree to something that wasn't going to be able to be delivered on?
So this was a term and an agreement with TPS that was entered into in 2014. I think today, in my opinion, 60 days in these kind of cases is not realistic and not reasonable. We will be discussing that with TPS. It's my view in reviewing this that Ruben Tomlinson exercised all due diligence in proceeding to investigate the case. They spent a lot of time looking for potential witnesses. They conducted, I believe, 19 interviews and re-interviews. They reviewed extensive documentation and then provided us with their report. So in my opinion, there was no undue delay, and the 60 days is just not realistic, not only in this case, but in other cases like this.
Okay. That's all my questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. We're moving on to Commissioner Carroll.
Thank you. The report that it contained in the management response, there's a table of actions taken that mostly speak to things that will change in the training modules and things will be looked at. But in the text of the report, it talks about a top to bottom review.
No, we can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry.
You're back. You're back now.
I'm just going to do that. Sorry, being on the back of City Hall, I have terrible Wi-Fi. Is the top to bottom review now complete? Because it's not mentioned in the table. What's left to be done there?
Andrew, would you take that one, please, about what you're doing working with Arlene to do a review of the organization, the uniforms, the tools and materials they need?
Hi there. I think that Andrew's feed died out on us. I'm not sure, so I can try and respond to that. So the top to bottom review is that we're going to be looking at all of the policies and procedures that we currently have in place. We're going to be looking at uniforms. We're also going to be updating all of the training that we have in place, and especially with the lens to include things within our anti-racism strategy, more diversity and inclusion type of training. The other 3 components are about use of force. Looking at the use of force has been documented in the policy and procedure manual. However, it needs to be revisited and updated as well, especially with including corporate direction. We have use of discretion policy that we have drafted. and it's just going through internal review, and then we need to take it out to external key stakeholder review, especially the Ombudsman Toronto's office. And then we also have a race-based data collection policy that we're embarking upon. So those are some of the items that we're going to be looking at with a top-to-bottom review. Or one other quick thing is we're making sure that we do alignment with other corporate processes like training and recruiting.
Okay, so that's a separate action from what's been fit in here to response to recommendations. These are just the pieces that speak directly to the recommendations you got from Reuben Tomlinson or from the.
That is correct.
But the top to bottom is much more in depth and has a lot more moving parts. It sounds.
That's correct.
Okay. And so where's the timeline on that? Is that, are we, there's policy development in there, it has to come to board and things like that. We don't expect to get this work all done in 2021, I would think.
Not all of it, but Arlene Huggins will be feeding into it, and we will be coming back in Q2 with a status update and the draft work plan for that. I know that I try to be aggressive with timelines, and so we have to be mindful and make sure that we can make whatever timelines we do report. So for sure, we will bring an update in Q2.
Right. And who are all the stakeholders currently involved in this? I guess you can't answer in terms of special constables, but some of this work involves interacting with police policy staff, I would think, because it's sworn special constables, there's some interaction with the Police Act and things like that. Am I right?
Yes, and I don't know if Andrew's back, but he did speak to the fact earlier about connecting with the police liaison and working through them to get consultations.
Okay, okay. Those are my questions for now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else with questions, so I'll just ask one, and in case you have questions, you can let us know. I just want to ask about the training, actually all the holistic training approach used by the TTC that these constables would have been exposed to or have taken. Specifically around de-escalation, but the whole gamut of training that would be part and parcel of their employment.
Yeah, so I can speak to that. I'm not sure if everybody can hear me. I think my computer just sort of went offline at the wrong time. So can I be heard?
Yes.
Join my club, Andrew.
Okay, if not, I can just if not, I can just go into Michelle's office and speak to there. So what we do is with the initial training that the special constables go through, we do cover use of force. We do cover pyramid of accountability, notebook, crisis communication and de-escalation, implicit and explicit bias, and confronting anti-Black racism, which is just the newer model that we've put in, and mental health interventions. So part of that, it's woven into, when we're speaking of specific to the use of force, it's woven into a scenario-based training. So you have an officer that will be standing there. You have two sort of players. You enter a situation, and then we review that situation from front to back with respect to, okay, do you apply use of force, yes or no, and the reasons why, right? And then we take all that into consideration, the mental health piece, confronting anti-Black racism piece, and all that's woven in, right? One of the steps that I want to do with the department is to increase that by separating a little bit. So we still have that embedded in the program, but then we have it separated, right? And then we cover them individually. So I think it adds that flavor of this is important. It adds that flavor of this is really a separate piece, because when you walk up to a situation, it's so dynamic. You have so many things coming at you. If you can really concentrate on this one piece before you enter that situation, then I think we may come up with different results. So that's what I want to focus the training on. Also, too, I want to add with the coach officer course. So when they finish their basic training, they go with the coach officer for 6 months, right? So that's pretty much like your on-the-job training. So one of the things we did is we implemented that since I got to the position with the training for that, with a specific emphasis on the mental health piece and confronting anti-Black racism piece, right? The use of force is the use of force, right? But I think if we concentrate on the key aspects of just before you enter into use of force, if we can concentrate on that from a coach officer perspective, from a supervisor perspective, because we have a course for them as well, because right now there's nothing available for them. So for me, I want to look inward and say, how do we lead up to this situation? So it starts with your coaching. That new person just coming in, they have to have the new mindset that we have, right? Our supervisors have to have the new mindset that we have. And if we don't teach them, we can't expect them to act.
Thank you very much. That was a comprehensive response. I don't see any other questions, so we're going to move to speakers. So unless I'm wrong, but I think I'm right. So we're going to move to speakers now. Anybody who would like to speak? I know Councillor Carroll has a motion, so why don't you go ahead?
Okay, happy to go first, Madam Speaker, Madam Chair. I don't know if clerks can put the motion up because that would be easier than me finding it to read it right now. There it is. That the board requests the CEO, in consultation with the external advisor, consider the creation of a stakeholder advisory group for the ongoing review of revenue protection and special constable services. Direct the to discuss stakeholder engagement with the external advisor and report back in February 21 as part of the status update report on the Ombudsman's recommendation. Madam Speaker, Madam Chair, what I'm moving here, I haven't designed it and handed you a perfectly formed thing because I want to give staff are doing all of this work and I want to give them the comfort level to be able to propose the design of it. But I've looked around at successful change models, starting with our own police force that have been working their way through this since carding to now, and have netted a number of things out of it, and are making the gradual changes that need to be made. What made it possible was having a common table, and it only needs to meet 3 or 4 times a year, but something that is a sounding board where you bring together the highest leadership all the way down to having a couple of rank and file people living this every day at the table, so that as we design change, we're sure that the buy-in exists at every level of the organization and key stakeholders. In the Toronto Police case, referring to other successful strategies, they even went to the added making sure that there was an equal number of management and non-management within the service, but they also made sure that there was a citizen member and a political member, each of the board. They really balanced it, and then brought rank and file and tried to gender balance it, so that for every change we proposed, there were people sitting at the table who could say, well, we're the ones on the ground every day, and here's why that will be hard to work out in our day-to-day existence. And that is key right now. Here we are trying to make change that we've needed all along, since the very first investigation we ever heard from the Ombudsman. But we're asking for this change at a time, some of us ride, some of us don't on a regular basis. But if we do right now, what we know is that at the moment, our constables and our DEOs are dealing with some of the most difficult situations ever, right on the system. The crisis in drug use is playing out in our system. The mental health and shelter crisis is living its daytime hours on our system, and they're dealing with it. And so to be having this conversation about their perceived failings right in the middle of that time is hard. And I don't see how we can do this change unless they know that we're really fairly listening to the change before it's a last minute report at the board, that we're actually actively participating, providing reference, and that we're bringing a couple of rank and file of their own to the table to speak on their behalf. And I don't mean just union leadership. I mean, you know, randomly selecting or have them apply and pick name blind, whatever you want to do, making sure their perspective is there so that we come up with something at the end where they understand the need for change, but they also understand that we're trying to do it in a way that is workable for them, that makes it possible for them to do the important work that they have to do. We all want that, but if we don't have buy-in across all levels, it's not going to happen. And so I'm asking that the CEO go away and think about this, because it's what's missing. There's all this work to do, and he's got all these role-playing roles involved in it, and the person who's going to be the person doing the independent investigations, reporting directly to the board, will be a measure of whether or not we're getting anywhere. Because what we hope is that they have very little work to do. But even that right now, the hiring of that person is going on, and we're not having a lot of direct oversight over it. COVID makes it possible that we probably aren't sitting in a hiring panel in a room helping hire that person. But we need to have oversight somehow, and having this reference group would make it possible for us to really track that we're doing the things that can make change and that the officers themselves can be a part of. So I'm hoping that that the board can support this. Yes, it's a little extra work for us, but we don't want to make more work for management. So I'm not talking about something that would be meeting every 2 weeks, just to track periodically. Thanks, Madam Chair. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Any questions for the mover? I don't have any other speakers, so I'm just going to say a few words related to the motion that was just before us. You know, I think stakeholder and consultation is very important. Having said that, you know, I think we have to be careful how we facilitate these things and remaining independent. We now have this external advisor, Arlene, in place, who you met this morning and may have met previously in one-on-one meetings. Obviously, she's very impressive. I think you saw what I saw today. She's extremely impressive and well-versed in this, and you know, extremely experienced. So we were criticized today by our ombudsman about delays, and I just don't want anything that will delay this process. We need to get it moving. So I will be supporting the motion before us because it's clearly stated in there. It's in consultation with the external advisor and to consider, you know, consider all this. But I don't want to stand in the way of Arlene's review. I want to make sure we're heeding her advice. And, you know, I think this motion does give us the opportunity to consult with Arlene. And I also want to just mention part of her mandate was expanded to include transformation of the special constables and revenue protection. So, and that happened in September 2020. So just generally moving away from the motion and just to general comments. Clearly we have some work to do. I do think that the summary of the training was very impressive. There is a lot of training happening, extensive training. And so that speaks volumes in itself. But these are very serious incidences, and we have to deal with them in a serious manner. So I'll end there, and we can move on. So we need to, at this time, have a motion to adopt staff recommendations that are noted in the report. But I guess we should do on the motion first. I always forget that. So let's put the motion up on the screen again so everybody can have a look at that. So this is a motion to amend the recommendations. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. And now we would just ask that we amend the staff recommendations. Sorry, receive it with the amendment. So all those in favor of the staff recommendations? Opposed? Carried. Okay, so earlier in closed session, it was agreed upon that we would break Would people be open to breaking just for 30 minutes, or do you want the usual hour? What, 30 minutes? Thumbs up? Thumbs up for 30 minutes. Okay. So the time right now is 12:52. We will return into open session at exactly 30 minutes from now. Thanks, everyone.
Chair, we are live.
Okay. Thank you. And we're back in public session. We're going to start with item 1, Chief Executive Officer's Report, December 2020 update.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our YouTube viewers and today's participants to the board's 6th virtual meeting. And welcome back to our viewers and participants joining us from the earlier Virtual and Audit Risk Management Committee meeting. And Chair Robinson, it's great to have you back in the chair. I just want to let you know that how appreciative I am for all the sound advice and leadership you've given me behind the scenes in the last year. It's been invaluable to me personally. I'd like to start off by congratulating ACAT members who are completing their term at the end of this year. Normally, we celebrate with presentations and photos, yet circumstances are such that we must extend virtual or heartfelt thanks for your dedication for breaking down barriers to public transit. This time, our retiring members will receive their plaques by special delivery, all because of COVID. So unfortunate. On behalf of the TTC, I'd like to say thank you for your service to the following: Anita Dressler, Bobby Moore, Jessica DeBoers, Marion McDonald, and Mazen Aribi. Chair Aribi has been joining us today and will be speaking on behalf of ACAT shortly. Mazen has served as the ACAT chair for the last 2 years and has provided excellent leadership to the committee during these challenging times. And thanks to Mazen and his leadership, the TTC is a better place. And from a personal standpoint, thank you, Mazen, for all you've done for this organization and will continue to do, I should add, and for me personally. So I just say, please join me with a round of applause for Mazen and his colleagues and wish them a happy ACAT retirement and happy holidays. Thank you. And as an added note, our new ACAT members starting in January, as well as those that are just retiring, they'll be happy to know that Runnymede Station became the TTC's 50th accessible station and the 19th station on with elevators on Line 2, Bloor Danforth, at the end of November. So we continue to move on with that great initiative. You know, I remind everybody the TTE is very proud of its employees. And it's with extreme pride that we extend congratulations to this following group of people who celebrated long service milestones with the TTC in 2020. You know, words can't express our gratitude for their service, dedication, and ongoing contributions to the TTC's growth and success. So on behalf of the executive team and senior management, I'd like to extend my sincere gratitude to the following 12 employees. And I'm going to start out with Ronald Agar from Stations. Ronald has 50 years with the TTC. Absolutely amazing. What a commitment. Thank you, Ronald. And now we'll move on to those with 45 years. We have Douglas Cummings from Streetcar Infrastructure, James Daly from Stations, John Keeling from Plant Maintenance, and Nizar Visram from Bus Maintenance and Shops. Again, 45 years. What a commitment. I'll move on to those with 40 years. Again, incredible commitment. Joanne Ball from Legal, Shim Shubdin Deya, Research and Analytics. We got Byron Ennis from Danforth Division, Long Ga from IT Services, John McClelland from Plant Maintenance, Brian Selwood from Arrow Road Division, as well as Jimmy Sorlinis from Bus Maintenance and Shops. You know, again, the traditionally we would be recognizing our long service employees at the board with presentations and pictures. But I'll let you know that I do hope to congratulate each one personally in the coming year. So special thanks to our recipients and best wishes to them all over the holidays as well. Moving on, Commissioners, you know, we've reported previously to the board on the subject of prorated credit for March and April monthly passes. Anyone who is eligible for a prorated credit for both March and April, or anyone who has yet loaded it onto their card can do so at any time. I'd let you know that the TTC and Presto have extended the deadline to February 28th of 2021 to load credits onto their cards. And as of December 10th, nearly 160,000 customers, just out of just over 200,000, have picked up their credit. So it was a good move with that for people out there. Just yesterday, as I move on, just yesterday, we successfully completed a 10-day subway closure that really propelled our infrastructure crews ahead by several years in work to modernize the system and provide the best possible service to our riders. Line 1 closure began on December 4th and stretched between Finch and Shepherd stations. Vital state of good repair was undertaken, such as tunnel liner repairs, asbestos removal, and ATC signal upgrades. Throughout the 10-day closure, it's estimated that the asbestos removal contractor has removed close to 25,000 square feet of asbestos on the flat wall surfaces between North York Center and Finch stations. 25,000. The work has been performed safely and in accordance with all environmental regulations. The closure was an example of teamwork across all areas of the TTC. I'll say from Megan McCray and her vision to attempt this, to Fort Monaco and his infrastructure and engineering teams, and Betty Hasurgeon and the safety and environment team. Thank you for making this happen. And of course, I can't forget Jim Ross and the entire operations group for making this seamless for our customers. But I do want to throw a special thank you out there to Capral Kapa, whose leadership on the closure went above and beyond. I was out there a number of times last week, and Capral is always on his feet, always working, always out there, ensuring the good quality service, making sure the employees and our customers are safe. So great job, and I'm just thrilled that you were out there, sir. I'd let you know that this is a huge piece of work, and it's really hard to capture and thank all of the groups that made this happen. We look at the different departments from transit control to our vehicles department, subway operations, closures and diversions, procurement, communications, and customer experience. A long list out there of people participating. This really is about partnerships internally to making things happen as successfully as they were. So I'd like to thank all employees for their skill and their commitment to advancing this project and for our service. And finally, I would like to say special thank you to Councilor Fillion as well as his staff for their ongoing support on this closure. I had the opportunity to speak with the councilor a number of times leading up to the closure, and he was very, very supportive of it. Councilors, 2020 has been a unique year for the TTC, and in spite of all the challenges, our lists of accomplishments are lengthy, and the year really isn't even over yet. I'd let you know that in February, we'll be coming back to the board with a presentation on our 2019 and 2020 accomplishments, as well as a look ahead to the goals for 2021 and 2022. And as you know, safety of our customers really is top priority, and we really have a lot of focus on safety. I'd let you know that we're steadfast in our commitment to a safe and healthy workplace for our people, as well as a safe service for the public we serve. Safety before production is a standard that we will continue to stand behind while we work together to continuously strive for additional resiliency and improvements in the workplace. As we continue to advance our state of good repair and major capital project work into next year, we want to highlight the key elements from our health and safety plans. I've asked Betty Hasurgeon, our acting chief of safety, who's here with us today to speak and provide you information on the 2021 safety focus. So Betty, if you wouldn't mind.
Can everybody hear me? Thank you.
Go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Rick, and good afternoon, everyone. As Rick mentioned, as we continue to advance our state of good repair and major capital project work into next year, we want to highlight the safety focus areas from our 3-year safety, health, and environment plan, which we review annually as we continue to enhance our safety, health, and environment management system. Before going through the safety focus areas, it's important to provide some background. The TTC manages and mitigates occupational health and safety, operational safety, and environmental risks due to our operations, activities, and services in a systematic and consistent manner through our safety, health, and environment management system. This is a comprehensive and proactive approach to managing safety by integrating all processes into a continual improvement cycle of plan, do, check, act. It is based on global management system standards like ISO 45001 and OSAS 18001. The Safety, Health, and Environment Policy is the overarching document and the key driver of our safety management system. It establishes the TTC senior management's commitment to protecting the environment and the safety and health of its workers, customers, and the general public. On an annual basis, the safety executive conducts a review of our safety management system, and the purpose of this review is to ensure its continuing suitability, adequacy, and effectiveness. We present this annually to the Audit and Risk Management Committee and subsequently to the TTC Board to provide members with information on the functioning of TTC safety management system. The final report of the annual review summarizes the results of the review and gives rise to our 3-year health and safety work plan. The next several slides highlight the areas that we will focus on in the next 12 to 18 months. A successful safety program demonstrates effective management leadership, a firm commitment to the program, and a willingness to improve the workplace safety culture. We will demonstrate this by increasing overall visibility of senior management team in the field and engage with our frontline workers in maintenance, operations, and construction groups. Rick, along with members of the executive team, have already conducted field visits to hear from various crews. Really, the purpose is to engage and support our workers and listen to their opinions about improving the safety culture at the TTC. We are developing action plans, and we are committed to providing regularly scheduled updates, informing our employees of actions taken to address their concerns. The next focus area is employee engagement, which is closely tied to the management commitment one. This involves an overall communication strategy to broaden our reach and increase engagement with our employees. The objective is to enhance understanding of our safety program and facilitate safety support to the front line. This will be achieved by reviewing and rebranding all internal communication channels, including the MyTTC employee app, which we just recently launched, and revamping our TTC TV narrowcasting to better reach our frontline employees. The next focus area is organizational structure and resource requirements. We will review the structure and safety services currently provided, benchmarking against similar organizations and best practices. We will shift more resources to support our night and off-shift operations by creating a dedicated team that provides expertise and guidance to maintain safe operation during these shifts. The next focus area is process reviews and audits. As we know, conducting audits and process reviews, the check component of our management system, are effective methods of ensuring compliance and improving performance of prevention systems. We will continue with our annual audit of safety and environmental programs. We'll identify and implement opportunities for improvement in current operating practices, policies, and procedures, and we will be implementing targeted facility safety audits to assess legal compliance and address any deficiencies. The next focus area is onboarding and training. We will ensure safety is at the forefront of recruitment processes by reviewing our job descriptions and core competencies, looking through a safety lens. We will do this in parallel to the review being conducted already through the diversity lens. We will evaluate the training and competency element of the safety management system and ensure training programs adequately address safety awareness and competency requirements. Focus will be on those safety critical positions first, ensuring that employees have and maintain the appropriate level of knowledge, skills, and training to conduct their work safely. The next focus area is reporting and analytics. The Safety Executive Committee reviews safety, security, and environmental performance against key performance indicators on a monthly basis. And of course, as I mentioned, they perform a comprehensive safety management system review on an annual basis. We will continue with the implementation of technological tools like our Safety Connect software solution, to allow for better tracking, reporting, and analytics of all safety and environmental data. This includes from incidents and investigations, observations, audits, assessments, etc. And this will ensure more visibility of safety information at all levels of management. We are also reviewing our incident reporting and investigation processes and ensuring that we enhance communication of any significant safety incidents to the executive team. We will support operational departments and incorporate additional software modules to meet business needs. And finally, this slide summarizes some of the key deliverables for 2021, which I've highlighted in the previous slides. We'll provide board members a progress update on these items as part of our annual Safety, Health, and Environment Management System Review Report, which is provided to the board each year in May or June. This concludes my presentation. I will now pass it back to Rick.
Thank you very much, Betty. That was very good. And finally, as we approach the holiday season, I would like to thank all of our employees for their unwavering commitment and dedication to the TTC, as well as for ensuring an ever important job of safety, service, and courtesy to our customers. I'd let you know that I'm incredibly proud of this organization and all the people who work tirelessly for the citizens of Toronto. I'd also like to say happy holidays to our customers. You know, throughout this pandemic, we've continued to carry hundreds of thousands of customers, those who rely on us every day. So a special thank you to them for their patronage and trust in the TTC. I'd also like to extend a thanks from the executive team and senior management to Chair Robinson, as well as Vice Chair De Laurentiis and the entire board for your support through 2020. Commissioners, we'll be looking back on 2020 as a difficult and historic year, and we will welcome the day when we look at COVID as something in the past. So with that, Chair, that concludes my opening remarks. Thank you.
Very much. Commissioner Osborne has a question.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I note that the report includes some statistics on mask distribution and adoption, which I both appreciated and was quite impressed by. I think the numbers that we're seeing on transit are really gratifying. But we're about to enter a phase now with the arrival of the vaccine where we're going to be in this weird limbo space where we have people who are unvaccinated, partially vaccinated, and fully vaccinated, which leads us to a point where there are people who may feel they do not need to wear a mask, some who now may feel they can get away with not wearing a mask. And I know that there are other jurisdictions that are grappling with this, but I'm wondering if you have had any conversations with people about what the best guidance is for public health while we enter a phase where not everybody requires the same measures.
Through you, Chair. You know, we continue to take advice from Toronto Public Health in the consultation on a weekly basis. I'd let you know that we have made masks mandatory to the end of the year when it comes to all employees, but we're in the process of extending that now and continuing the mandatory mask into 2021. And again, we'll continue to do that. And as you said, as things evolve and we have the vaccine out there, we're going to continue to assess and have discussion with Toronto Public Health, Dr. Eileen de Villa, personally on that, and that's how we move forward with it.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? I'll just, okay, Councillor Carroll, go ahead.
It's just a quick one, Madam Speaker. While we have the CEO on the floor, I note that we're less than a week away from the special budget committee meeting, and that agenda is not posted. Can we tell the public that it will be posted soon so they have time to read it?
Yes, through you, Chair. That'll be posted on Thursday morning, Councillor.
First thing Thursday morning while I'm still eating my Wheaties?
First thing Thursday morning.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, and I just want to thank the whole TTC staff for their phenomenal work this year during a global pandemic. I can't believe what this organization has achieved, even while trying to parallel this whole pandemic. And I think on behalf of the whole board, I just want to extend our appreciation, given that we're at the year end. because I know firsthand how hard the whole staff team has worked to get through this. And I'm talking like we're through it, but there's a vaccination here and being rolled out, and hopefully 2021 will look a lot better. But I do want to thank the TTC staff. I also have to comment on our long service employees. Such an impressive number of years, especially the gentleman who served 50 years. He must have started when he was 12 years old because he looks so young. And lastly, I just want to say about the asbestos. I've never been more excited about hearing about asbestos in my life. So I would like to ask the CEO to one more time emphasize to the world the timelines and the time that we're saving by doing what we've been doing for the last several days.
Chair, thank you for that. Again, the time savings that we have is greater than 2 years worth of time that we would have worked on the all-night shift with early closures. So we're really pleased with that. Almost 25,000 square feet of asbestos. And by June, I'll let you know, they'll be out doing a little bit of work around the cabling in those areas throughout the next 4 to 5 months. But by June, we have it'll all be mitigated out and out of our way as we continue to work on the ATC project to be fully up and implemented and fully operational right around to Finch by September of 2022.
Thank you very much. Great work. Amazing. So exciting. So I think that's all Joanne's giving a thumbs up, but she's not going to speak, I don't think. Okay. The vice chair is giving you a thumbs up. Okay. So we're going to move on to our next item. But before we do, we need a motion to receive the CEO's report. Okay. I'm going to give that to Commissioner Lai. She had her hand up first. So that's so moved by Commissioner Lai. All those in favor? And that carries. All right. Item 2, approved minutes of the Advisory Committee on the Accessible Transit ACAT General Monthly Meeting for October 29th, 2020. I'd like to invite Mazen for the very last time to present the ACAT minutes.
Thank you, Chair Robinson. Good afternoon, everyone. Indeed, it will be the final for 2020. My remarks to you. I will have some closing remarks at the end. Let's do the official business first. Staff gave a presentation on the next procurement for conventional buses with goals aims towards a zero-emission fleet. Buses from 4 different manufacturers were shown, including the current hybrid buses and 3 models of electric buses. Some features that were demonstrated include stop request button options, including mounting options, ADA stop request button options and mounting options, mobility device position and securements, discussions around exterior auditable vehicle approaching warning. ACAT members also asked if a safety alert to motorists and cyclists similar to a school bus style stop sign could be added to the vehicle's exterior to combat ramp deployment collisions. In addition, cycling education is needed to ensure safety on shared routes. The TTC is reviewing the corridor lanes along Bloor Street West to identify high-frequency drop and pickup locations. The TTC will ensure that all drop-off and pickup zones are within 70 meters of their destination. There will be protected curb cuts at locations for easier access to the roadway. Staff presented an update on the Wheel-Trans applications portal. The how-to video was uploaded to the portal, which advises customers on how to use the site and to submit an application. members expressed concerns with some submitting medical information. ACAT has moved a motion to the TTC board regarding e-scooters and e-bikes. As these types of devices have grown in popularity, it has become apparent that safety is a prime concern because of their undefined rules and regulations within the public realm. These devices can be operated in a manner that it is an impediment to accessibility. It is a safety issue for customers with disabilities and seniors and pedestrians near and on TTC properties. ACAT recommends that the TTC board ban the operation of e-scooters and e-bike on TTC properties, and that the definition and rules for bicycle be expanded to include e-scooters and e-bikes. Our next ACAT virtual meeting will be Thursday, December 17th, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. via WebEx. You are all welcome to join us. And now with my closing remarks, as another year comes to an end, I want to thank the TTC board members for their ongoing support to ACAT and accessible transit initiatives in Toronto. We have to date opened our 50th accessible subway station and well on our way to ensuring that every station has an accessible elevator and routes. I would also like to thank all TTC staff who worked diligently under Mr. Leary's leadership to keep all customers moving and safe during these unprecedented times that we are all facing. A special thanks goes out to Dwayne Geddes, Grace Powell, Loden Hassan, Millie Burnell, and Matt Haig, and finally to all my ACAT colleagues. Best wishes during the holiday season to you and your families. Stay safe and stay well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mazen. That was well done. Good job all around. So I just want to bundle really item 2 and 3 and also move a motion on just not the ACAT minutes, but the acknowledgement of our retiring members of ACAT. And I'd like to move that. All those in favor? That carries. And I just like to say a few words before we part from this item. I want to congratulate on behalf of the board all the retiring ACAT members. Rick earlier listed them and spoke about them. And I just want to extend a special thank you to Mazen. He is a serious and passionate advocate for accessible transit. And he's been involved with the TTC in various volunteer positions for nearly 2 decades. He has served 5 terms to date, and I wish he'd make it an even 6. Imagine, what about it? Even 6. So I don't know if you know this, but he's assisted with our operator and collector training. He's taken part in reviewing our subway platform gaps, which have been a big problem, and active contributor to the studies of how new accessible vehicle stations, signage, and Wheel-Trans procedures. So he has an incredible knowledge of the TTC, probably better than the rest of us, and the Wheel-Trans systems. And he served as the ACAT, not just the chair, but also as vice chair before that. In fact, as vice chair in 2004, Mazen was the first to board the TTC's first accessible streetcar, 4403, in a scooter for the inaugural ride along Spadina Avenue. So there's a little nugget of history for you. So on behalf of the board, Mazen, thank you so much for your contributions, your efforts, your energy. You've done all of this, you know, the goal of eliminating barriers to the using public transit, that you've done that so admirably and so authentically. I really, you're an exceptional individual. So thank you so much on behalf of all of us, and stay tuned because we're going to try to pull you back someday. Re-engage you, but thank you so much for your service.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I don't know if you can hear everybody's clapping, but they may be muted, but they were all clapping very heartily for you. Thank you, Mazen, and we're going to move on to item 9, 2021 Annual Service Plan. I understand we have a deputant on this item, so I would throw it over to the clerk to facilitate that.
Our deputant is Adam Cohoon. We're just unmuting him now. Go ahead, Adam. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you.
You're good now?
Yes. What I'm calling, what I'm here talking to you about is with the 2020 service plan. I noticed that there is nothing in there about customer service improvement. And why that concerns me is with more of the TTC moving to automated train control, which is definitely coming next year, and with more people, you know, not being around, I really think the TTC, and they can't wait for 5 years, really needs to look at how they can use new technologies and other ways to bring customer service, especially for the accessibility community and for the general public. I know there's wonderful campaigns that tell you not to pull the yellow emergency call strip when you are in the subway and stuff, but when there is going to be less staff on, when there is only going to be a driver, and who knows, maybe eventually not even that, we need to have another option than pushing the yellow button to talk to somebody for customer service needs. And so I know as a debutant, I can't ask of staff, but through the chair, I want to encourage every one of you guys to come up with a customer service strategy, especially with the fact that people on the family of services are being moved to conventional transit and expecting people to just ask, like, when they need customer service, to not do anything. It's akin to if the police department in Toronto did not have the 808 numbers, and anytime you needed the police, we were calling 911, then there would be problems. We need to have another option, especially when we're on the subways, to get a hold of staff than the yellow strip. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Any questions for Adam? I don't see anything, everybody. I can't see everybody, but I don't believe there are. So we'll move on to thank Adam for your comments today and move on to the 2021 Annual Service Plan. I want to invite Kathleen LT, as I call her, our Chief Strategy and Customer Officer, to introduce the item. And I know she's also going to include Mark Miss, who will deliver the staff presentation. So really happy, Kathleen, you're with us today, and you've done such a great job in this, and we'll talk about that later, but you can kickstart the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to just remind the members of the board the annual service plan that here. It's the detailed annual plan that sets levels of service, looks at route restructuring, and that sort of thing. We've done it in consultation with the public. It also identifies the annual service hours, and for budgeting purposes, it leads to what our workforce needs are going to be and fleet needs and the other kind of system that supports the service. Our eye is always on customers, but we wanted to bring this to you in the days before you consider the budget, which I know Commissioner Carroll was asking about, because this is the basis really for the budget that will be before you. This is the second year of the 5-year annual service plan that the board approved, and we're continuing with many of the initiatives, and Mark Miss will be explaining that in his presentation. I wanted to mention that a key thing is our demand responsive service plan. We have budgeted for sort of unscheduled work so we can send that service to where crowding appears, because we still are in a very dynamic customer demand situation right now. I also just wanted to mention that with the Toronto Board of Health approving their COVID Equity Action Plan, they really are pointing to the work that TTC is already doing and providing that demand responsive service so that we can keep crowding to a minimum. And again, Mark's presentation will detail that for you. I just didn't want you to think that Board of Health direction was going to change our plans for the service plan at all. The last thing I want to mention is an important innovation that we used at TTC, which is kind of modeled on the idea of a community benefits plan, whereby we reached into the community and identified 4 diverse young customers and partnered with them. We actually hired them sort of on an intern basis and paid them a living wage to engage with their own counterparts in community. And Mark will be explaining to you some of the learnings that we had from that community. And it's an approach that I want to use in the future as we talk to customers. We don't want to be seen as coming in and sort of, extracting from community. We want to partner with community and really hear what our customers are saying about their experience on our system, which is really what all of our meeting has been about today. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mark Miss, and I'll just say I want to thank Eric Chu, Senior Planner, who undertook this plan for the first time for TTC, and commend him for having done a good job for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Can I get a thumbs up if you can hear me? Perfect. Thank you so much. Next slide, Andrew, please. This presentation is organized into 3 topics. First, I'll provide a brief refresher on the TTC's 5-year service plan, which is the overarching plan approved by the board in December of 2019. Second, I will provide an update on 2020 service, including our response to COVID, which we call the Demand Responsive Service Plan, as Kathleen noted. Third, I'll present the 2021 annual service plan, including how the plan was prepared, our focus, priorities, and the 2021 action plan. Next slide, please. The 5-year service plan is a business plan that identifies actions, resources, and funding requirements between 2020 and 2024. Some of the elements of the plan have changed in response to the pandemic, but what remains constant is our vision and the opportunities we've identified to improve our customers' experience on the TTC. Next slide, please. The 5-year service plan identified the following vision. Focus on improvements that enhance the TTC's core competency, mass transit, moving large volumes of customers safely, reliably, and swiftly across Toronto. Next slide. The vision takes shape around 5 pillars of opportunity. The pillars are intended to improve each step of our customer's journey, enhance the transit network, enhance customer experience at key surface transit stop areas, improve service reliability, prioritize surface transit, and accelerate integration with regional transit partners and complementary modes of transport. Next slide. Each pillar of opportunity has specific action items. In total, there are 20 action items that include various initiatives to be implemented between 2020 and 2024. The colored boxes indicate where actions and their specific initiatives progress to a milestone or are implemented. Please refer to the 5-year service plan for more information on those specific initiatives. We believe that the vision, pillars of opportunity, and 20 actions continue to be critical to improving our customers' journeys, and for that reason, As you'll see, we have continued to use the 5-year service plan as a framework. Next slide. With an understanding of the 5-year service plan, I want to provide a brief update on service in 2020. This includes the demand responsive service plan, an update on demand, and a status update on the 2020 annual service plan. Next slide. In the spring, the TTC implemented the demand responsive service plan to serve our customers and their evolving need for public transit service. The plan was developed based on the following 2 principles. First, regular scheduled service will focus on protecting high ridership corridors and service to essential employment areas, grocery stores, pharmacies, healthcare facilities, and neighborhood improvement areas. Second, flexible bus service will be available daily to operate on routes where additional capacity is required to meet demand. Next slide. Since the pandemic, revenue ridership hit a low in April at 14% of pre-COVID demand. It peaked in mid-September at 37%, and it has decreased since then. As of the week ending November 27th, it is at 31%. Recognizing that one customer may board multiple vehicles to complete their journey, we also measure boardings by mode for service planning purposes and ultimately to adjust service levels. Overall, boardings are at 34% of pre-COVID with variations by mode as seen in the table. Next slide, please. We also see variation geographically. This map compares Presto taps at bus and streetcar stop locations in October versus pre-COVID. We see greater returns to normal in the city's outer planning districts, which is tied to a number of factors like employment areas continuing with essential work. But most importantly, many of our customers that use our services in these areas depend on the TTC for their day-to-day needs, like going to work, school, and shopping. These areas are served by the bus network. And we see slower returns to normal in the downtown, which is served predominantly by the streetcar network when we think about a surface perspective. Here, demand for transit is driven by workers and post-secondary students who have shifted to a virtual online format, and by residents from across the region that are not coming downtown for leisure purposes. Next slide. This map compares Presto taps at subway stations in October versus pre-COVID. We also see slower returns to normal on the subway network as the subway draws residents from across the region downtown. Combined with the surface data, our weekday ridership demand in the downtown core has decreased by 78% in the pandemic. Before COVID, the downtown normally represented about half of the system's weekday ridership. This suggests that demand on the subway and streetcar network will remain low until the pandemic ends. Meanwhile, there is still a significant demand that needs to be served outside the downtown on the bus network. The previous slide and this slide are important because it provides insight into our customers' demand for service. And this information has contributed to the development of the 2021 annual service plan and the hours we have budgeted by mode. Next slide. Our outlook for 2021, based on available and evolving information, is that ridership will steadily increase from where we are today to 50% of normal levels by the end of 2021. We estimate that ridership could increase above 50% when COVID vaccinations begin and the pandemic subsides. Demand will continue to vary by mode, with bus service being the greatest, until activity in the downtown core significantly increases. Next slide, please. Before we present the 2021 annual service plan, I'll take a brief moment to provide a status update on the 2020 action plan. In total, we identified 16 initiatives for 2020. 6 have been implemented, 6 have been started, and 4 have been deferred due to the pandemic. Our greatest accomplishment has been the implementation of the Eglinton East Corridor. We recognize some fine-tuning is required, and we've heard valuable feedback from councillors and stakeholders on how to proceed in 2021, which we've included in this plan. However, overall, we have seen a travel time savings for customers on the corridor, approximately a 15% savings year over year, and an 8% savings as compared to the week immediately before the bus lanes were implemented. Next slide. So within the framework of the 5-year service plan and building on 2020, the 2021 annual service plan focuses on continuing to respond to our customers' evolving demand for transit service. Next slide. The 2021 annual service plan has been prepared taking into account numerous factors like technical analysis, operational insights, and public health guidance. It also takes into account changing customer values and preferences, as well as customer and stakeholder feedback. Also, as Kathleen mentioned, for the first time ever, we recruited youth leaders in neighborhood improvement areas to share the annual service plan in their communities to seek feedback on issues that were important to them. We received valuable feedback, and the common theme shared by all youth leaders was to focus on the basics, provide capacity where it's needed, and make sure service is reliable and consistent. One youth leader explained it this way, and I quote, "The TTC has a major influence on how people feel throughout the day. If you start your day with a bad experience, it stays with you." So this comment resonated with me because it goes beyond the usual technical analysis and operational reviews that we take into account, and it really underscores the importance of continuing to focus our efforts on the fundamentals: safe, reliable, and swift service for our customers. Next slide, please. So based on all this, our focus in 2021 is to continue to respond to customers' dynamic and evolving demand for public transit service. Next slide. And our key priorities are to sustain the demand responsive service plan, including flexible buses, improve regular scheduled service, including optimizing capacity, improving service reliability, addressing evolving travel patterns, and advance key strategic initiatives, including surface transit improvements, service integration, and implementing the automated shuttle. Next slide, please. So within the framework of the 5-year service plan, taking into account the demand responsive service plan in 2020, and will continue, and our focus and priorities in 2021, we have prepared an action plan for 2021. There are 22 initiatives. Initiatives 1 through 7 focus on service changes that respond to demand, travel behavior, and transit access. Initiatives 8 through 10 focus on key stop areas. This includes making 220 stops accessible in 2021. Initiatives 11 through 13 focus on improvements to service reliability. With changes in traffic volumes, we are reviewing all weekday schedules to ensure they reflect actual operating conditions. Initiatives 14 through 16 focus on prioritizing surface transit. As I mentioned earlier, in 2021, we are focusing on consultation, outreach, and technical analysis on key corridors like Jane. Initiatives 17 through 22 focus on strategic improvements, service integration with neighboring transit agencies, implementing an automated shuttle, advancing integration with active modes of transportation such as cycling and walking. You will note in red text that Line 5 has been deferred to 2022. Planning for Line 5 operations will be the primary focus of the 2022 annual service plan. This includes preparing a contingency bus plan during startup to mitigate any risks that may occur, and changes to the bus network to maximize connections for customers when we've achieved a somewhat steady state of operation. Next slide, please. I would like to highlight Initiative 1, optimize capacity by rebalancing service levels in greater detail before presenting the resource requirements. This chart shows routes by period of operation for an average weekday in September when demand was at its highest. Note that 100%, which is seen along the top horizontal axis, is equal to 25 customers. Note that the vertical axis to the left identifies our periods of operation for a weekday. This initiative focuses on matching capacity with demand. Pre-COVID, this was a business as usual activity with a few changes that we made every month. But given the major fluctuations in ridership throughout the pandemic, there is more than typical variation by route, by time of day, which means this will be our major activity in 2021. I think on the opening slide, you saw the tagline for the 2021 plan, which was restart, recover, rebuild. This is where the rebuild happens. As you can see, some routes operate with more than 25 customers per bus. That's on the right side of 100, and some operate with less than 25 customers per bus. That's on the left side of 100. Our objective is to reallocate resources from routes on the left to routes on the right, regardless of time of day. Our goal is to minimize the variation. What does this mean for customers? Routes on the left side become slightly less frequent. Routes on the right side become slightly more frequent. This exercise, as I mentioned, is about optimization and matching capacity with demand, which has also been identified as a key measure in the city's COVID-19 Equity Action Plan, which Kathleen noted in her introductory remarks. Next slide, please. The following 6 slides speak to resource requirements, service hours, fleet, and a financial summary. Starting with service hours, this graph shows weekly service hours on bus. The green dotted line equals the 2020 budget. The light green solid line equals actual service delivered in 2020. The blue line equals scheduled service in 2020 and budgeted service in 2021. As you can see, bus service is restored in 2021 starting in January. Next slide. As for streetcar service, it remains at current service levels. The 2021 annual service plan budgets for an increase in the fall of 2021, assuming activity in the downtown resumes and demand increases. Next slide. Same with subway. We're protecting for an increase in demand in the fall of 2021, assuming activity in the downtown resumes and demand increases. On the other hand, if demand increases sooner than expected, we would increase service accordingly. The main point here is that this plan provides us with the flexibility needed to act based on demand. Next slide. On a budget-to-budget basis, the 2021 annual service plan budgets for a decrease of 303,000 annual service hours versus 2020. As seen in Figure 2 of the board report, 75% of that is related to changes we made in the spring in response to the pandemic, and 25% has no effect on service capacity whatsoever. This includes implementing operating efficiencies like automatic train control on line 1 and removing a day of service, which was required this year because it was a leap year. Next slide. The existing fleet is sufficient to implement the 2021 annual service plan. As noted in the TTC fleet procurement strategy and plan that was before the board in October, total bus numbers remain relatively constant over the next 5 years. This is because we're reinvesting buses back into the network. Approximately 150 buses are made available through other initiatives like the opening of Line 5, Line 6, and procurement of high-capacity vehicles like more streetcars and more articulated buses. And we've planned for increases on other modes as seen in the table as well. Next slide. From a financial perspective, the 2021 annual service plan results in an operating cost savings of approximately 20.5 million versus the 2020 budget, and 282.7 million in capital funding is included in the 2021 capital plan. This includes funding for stop improvements, surface transit priority measures, but the vast majority is to start procuring replacement and growth vehicles for 2022 and beyond. The 2021 operating budget and the 2021 capital plan will be before the board on December 21st, as you know. And finally, next slide. We recognize that the pandemic continues to evolve, and we recognize there is uncertainty about what life in Toronto will be like in 2021. That's why we prepared this plan. It provides us with the flexibility required to respond to our customers and their dynamic and evolving demand for public transit service in this city. Thank you, and I'm happy to take questions with my colleagues.
Very much for that detailed presentation. I don't have any questioners, but I'm sure there are some. So I think Commissioner McKelvey's got her hand up, and then yeah, I've got a few hands. So let's start with Commissioner McKelvey.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and apologies, I did forget to email in. My question is, it's a little bit specific, sorry. There is quite a detailed deputation that was provided, written about 8060, about the 8060 service now going into Scarborough Centre versus Kennedy and the 178A. I was just wondering if you've read the deputation, if you could maybe speak to the rationale for why you would have this going into Scarborough Centre now instead of Kennedy.
I have not seen the deputation, my apologies, but I can speak to the rationale about implementing the 178 Brian Morton service and redirecting, which is replacing the 86D. In looking at and analyzing service in the Scarborough East area, one of the things that was very important is to move service on the Lawrence East, the turnaround service to the Kingston, Lawrence, and Morningside intersection, so that we can leverage some of the rapid transit infrastructure on that corridor. And in doing so, there is a piece of the Scarborough Golf Club Road area that would no longer be served. In providing that Brian Morton service, we also wanted to connect further east to the 86D so that we can direct Scarborough service on the corridor. And so recognizing that there is a very frequent connection at the Kingston Lawrence Morningside intersection, we believe that the service change has some impact to customers in that Beach Grove area, but there is still creating greater access in the community to a natural hub, which is Scarborough Centre.
So with now taking into account they are transferring, but the service should be better on Kingston. Like, is it likely that it's kind of a wash and it'll still be a similar travel time for them?
Yeah, the service on the on that corridor is in the peaks and anywhere under 5 minutes, and in the off peak less than 7 minutes. So assuming that the worst case scenario is that they may have to wait up to that amount of time for the next service to make their connection to Kennedy.
Okay, and then the 178, like this is an area that never has received service before, so there is a great benefit to using the bus that way. So in general, is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
So in general, it seems like you're recognizing there's this rapid TO corridor, and it's about getting people in and connected into that more easily, like from all these other kind of feeder communities. Okay.
Yeah, well, you said it more crisply than I did. Yes.
Okay. And then my next question is, are you on track for the micro transit pilot? I think, where are we at with the status of that and working it into the schedule? Because I think it's important we get those learnings, because again, it's that way from these smaller communities in and connected into the big arterials of the transit system. So I just wanted to know status wise, where are we at on that?
City and TTC are planning to implement in spring of 2021.
Okay. And I think that's it. I'm not going to speak later. I just want to thank you, though. I'll take the opportunity to do that now at the discretion of the chair, or maybe she won't notice. To thank you for, she noticed, but to thank you for, we had put some recommendations last year and the year before, and they kind of say you'll roll it into the service plan, and you have to kind of have faith that you will do that, but you did. So thank you for being accountable to those changes, and it's much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll move on to Commissioner Lai.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very, very, very detailed report. I appreciate that, and thank you, staff, for doing that. And just a couple of questions about on the rapid TO. The City Council actually passed a motion on the busways to look at these services and alternatives and report back. How is the TTC putting into that process?
Depending on what occurs.
Oh, I hear some background.
Still fairly new. I'm hearing that it's
Sorry.
going to be later in the summer, perhaps.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I think somebody else's.
No,
it's not on mute.
it was mine.
Oh, okay.
It was mine. Yeah.
I don't know if Angela Gibson's online, and I know Barb Gray is online. Barb, would you like to take that, or would you like me to respond? Sorry about the time.
I'm happy to start, Mark. I think the question was about TTC's engagement, but we are going to be doing 2 meetings, Councillor Lai, through the chair. We'll be doing 2 meetings to talk about the surface transit plan and priorities, and work on the examination of that schedule, as well as the consultation on the routes that are in that plan. So we'll be doing that very closely, working with our partners at the TTC and city planning. So that's going to be rolling out in January, the first quarter of the year. And that's on track as far as I know.
Okay, so TTC is involved with all this process and all that. That's good.
Absolutely,
yeah.
And city planning as well. The
Yeah.
three agencies are working closely together.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. My next question will be about the service integration with your neighboring, with the neighboring municipalities. So I represent Scarborough North part of Scarborough. Can you maybe update me with, the measures already in place with York Region and whether you're going to have any additional integration service with that region.
Yeah, so currently the TTC provides service on contract to York Region Transit, also to Mississauga. The goal is to expand on that concept and provide an optimized service across boundaries. There are a number of other corridors across the city. There's approximately 20 to 25 that are under review right now, where both the TTC and or Mississauga, Brampton, York Region, or Durham operate. And the goal is to remove barriers that have previously been in place that have not allowed us to really optimize on that capacity. So we're trying to, use all the capacity available, and with any opportunities that results from that, reinvest back in the region, be it Mississauga reinvesting back in Mississauga and Toronto and reinvesting back in the city. So the goal is to make use of all the capacity that we have on these corridors.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Carroll.
Thank you. And I was going to ask if you're actually working with Ms. Gray's division back at the city, but obviously you are. She's here with us today. I'm particularly concerned with the north-south routes, because 2021 will be a big planning year in terms of getting ready for going back to normal traffic conditions, well, new normal traffic conditions once the Eglinton Crosstown is done. And so I was going to ask, are you working together with transportation in terms of figuring out the changes in both bus journeys and car journeys, north-south? Because as councillors, if I go all the way over to Councillor Pasternak's ward and work my way over, we haven't been able to study anything as planning and development has gone in on Shepherd. We can't study north-south because we're not dealing with normal. So are you doing projections of patterns once the construction moves out of the way, or is there a plan to do those studies together with transportation once it starts?
So we will be working with transportation services and trying to lever their expertise in identifying what some of the changes in traffic patterns will be on the major corridors. It's kind of, in the past it's been observe and then react, but I think we want to take the, the Wayne Gretzky approach, skate to where the puck is going, not where it's been, and really lever some of the expertise in their group, in transportation services group.
Right. So if we sorry.
I was just going to say to Commissioner Carroll, I just wanted I just wanted to emphasize that the TTC and City Planning and Transportation Services meet monthly, and we meet monthly to advance our shared work programs, but also to sort out issues related to data sharing. And as conditions change, both with the traffic flow and also land use conditions and other components, we bring that to the table, and we have a pretty vigorous discussions and chart our course forward. So that happens on a monthly basis. I just wanted to underscore the level of collaboration. It's pretty significant.
Okay, so I'm assuming that if they're going to be ready to open in 2022, there's probably going to be a period of time before that where we're just test running the crosstown, which means the traffic conditions, the road, the new road design should be in place. So is there a plan to sort of project how cars will move through those intersections, how buses will move through those intersections, such that we could begin making a plan for what might represent significant change in ridership patterns? I'm anticipating that once you get out as far as Don Mills, Victoria Park, and beyond, riders who've been traveling east-west for years are going to start traveling north-south, just go to get on the crosstown. And so we'll see ridership patterns change, and that will affect car traffic. Is there a plan being devised for that, or we're going to wait till we get there and then kickstart the traffic count in real time?
Through the chair, so I'll start, Mark, and you can add in. We have developed a congestion index that's citywide, and we are, wherever we have the counter technology, but also we're looking at volumes and tracking them routinely where we have watch your speed cameras, which is in every ward. So we're really not waiting until the patterns change. We're trying to be proactive about tracking so that we can inform changes as they happen. And again, the table to share information on ridership, that in critical data that the TTC excuse me, has and can bring to the conversation is so crucial in order for us to be able to be responsive and agile. So I don't think we'll wait.
Oh, okay. Okay. So there is what does the Crosstown do to all the traffic around it plan? There's some team doing this work. I'm sorry to keep belaboring this, but I'm hearing general answers to a very specific question.
Sorry.
Is there a line 5 and all its ancillary traffic patterns table somewhere?
So I can jump in and speak to the ridership piece. We do have a transportation model that was developed with the beginning of the program. We do know where demand will originate and where it's destined. And with that ridership projections, we have based an indicative route plan that you will find. I'm pointing to a 5-year service plan. In your 5-year service plan, there is an indicative route network there. One of the pieces of feedback that we heard in consultation, not only in the 5-year service plan, but as part of this plan, is to make sure you go out in the community and speak about those changes. And so from a route structure perspective, that is the number one job as part of the 2022 annual service plan. With respect to changes in traffic patterns and car volumes, that's an input to tell us how long the vehicle is going to take to get to its destination. But the actual route structure of what way it chooses or what route it operates on is really going to be done with the community, and that's that is the 2022 plan.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
So I just have one question. How are you ensuring continued flexibility in the face of shifting ridership needs and demands? So, we had challenges with this pre-COVID, post-COVID, in the post-COVID world. I mean, that flexibility is so important to riders and their needs and demands, as I said. So how are you achieving that or ensuring that?
So moving into 2021, we have brought back some regular scheduled service. You'll note that the express services, nearly all express services will be back as of January 3rd. But we also have sustained demand responsive vehicles. We've cut it essentially in half, gone from 200 to 100 to make the express routes operate. But it'll be twofold. One is that chart that we talked about optimizing service levels, so reworking the schedules, making sure that they fit demand, and at the same time where there's quick fluctuations that outpace our ability to schedule, we have the demand responsive 600 vehicles to accommodate that demand. So we're trying to cover ourselves, rebuild back the service, but recognizing it might move quickly, we have a backup with the 600s.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move to speakers.
No, I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you. I actually can't see you. So Commissioner Denzelman Wong.
Yeah, first question is, it was noted in the presentation that you're going to only reach 50% capacity at the end of 2021. What are you projecting your financial shortfall to be in the year?
It's 50% ridership, and I believe our interim CFO is on the line who can speak to the shortfall. Or her counterpart.
Josie?
I think she's there. She's just not, she's muted.
Madam Chair, I think they're trying to cut costs on internet service.
Not in the plan.
Josie, have we got you online here? I see that you're here. I just can't hear you.
My favorite financial officer.
Oh, okay.
We just heard she's coming.
Okay, great. Good news.
Can I ask a different question while we're waiting for Josie? page 11 of your service plan report, it's an interesting slide. It shows the number of people using the subway. And so all over a large section of Scarborough, they're not using the subway. I'm assuming they're not using the Yonge line, they're not using the Danforth line, the Bloor line. Is that what I take from that?
Is it page 11 of attachment 1 that you're referring to?
It says at the bottom of the page, 2021 annual service plan. It's the attachment, I think, but it's all one document.
Yeah, I have it in front of me. Sorry. Yeah. So this is, and this, somebody else had made the same comment internally. This represents taps at stations, not representing their home address location. So for example, if you look in Councillor McKelvey's ward, just because it's great doesn't mean they're not using transit. It just means that a Presto tap did not occur.
No, this is not transit, it says subway.
Yeah, so are you referring to figure 6? Am I correct?
Page 11, I think there's only one page 11.
Yep, and so it says subway demand by planning district. And so it represents the tap at the station. And if there is no station within a planning district, the planning district shows up as gray. So for example, the northwest in Etobicoke shows up gray. The northeast by Staines and Markham Road and Steeles shows up as gray. It represents taps at subway stations.
Okay, so that doesn't mean that the people in, let's say, most of northern Scarborough are not, none of them take the subway.
It does not mean that.
Tell me, there's a piece 21, which is in my area, which is a low 0 to 25%, which is really low. Why? Can you explain why there are so few people taking the subway in my area?
It's not a representation of use as much as it is walk-ins and the tap that occurs at that station. So if you were to look at the corresponding page on slide number 10, you would see that 42% of your customers board surface vehicles, bus predominantly, and they may access stations.
So does that mean they're not taking the subway, they're taking the bus?
The intent of the map is to show taps at the location of where a customer enters the system, not about usage of the system by ward.
Okay, so that means the people, the subway stations there get a lower number of taps, is that right?
Right, relative to what it was previously.
And, you know, no disrespect intended, what use is this map then?
The map is intended, we coupled with other information like our boardings, which represent, I believe on figure number 3, we're down to 26%, coupled with a geographic identification, it helps us identify what our service and hours requirement is for 2021. It's not one metric that develops the plan.
So if you take piece 21 and apply it to, I guess, that other slide on 10, is that your page 10? Which one are you using it with?
I'm using it in conjunction with what's on page number 8.
Does that mean you would lower service based on those slides because there are a lower number of taps and lower use?
I'm saying that it's one piece of information coupled with other relevant information such as boardings, revenue rides to determine what service levels should look like in the future. Otherwise,
I don't know. Okay, fine. I just don't know why you give us a slide that can't be used without integrating it with other slides. It doesn't mean anything.
Do we have the CFO or Josie on the line now?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, great.
Sorry
Welcome.
about
Hi,
that.
Josie.
Hello,
Welcome.
everyone.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Josie, how much are we going to be in the hole at the end of next year? Because ridership's going to be down.
So based on our projections to year end, which you heard from Mark, we're estimating about 49%, increasing up to about 49-50%.
Up to. So for the previous there, it's going to be lower.
Well, we're expecting that the projection of our experience today will extend into at least the first quarter.
Yeah.
So we're kind of at the 30% mark in terms of ridership, given the great lockdown.
Yeah.
So, and then we'll be incrementally increasing. Of course, that'll depend on, you know, how fast the vaccine takes effect, but our expectation is not, at least till the fall, that we'll see some increases. And so the budget you'll see in a matter of hours does anticipate that the revenue loss for 2021 on that forecast is about $750 million, just over that, which is just over half.
Wow.
So to the extent that these are our best estimates, we've been recalibrating almost weekly as things change. Clearly the news of inoculations yesterday may help to, you know, make that a better estimate, but this is our best at this moment.
Okay. And is there a way to plan to deal with this? I don't know how to deal with it. Like 750 is like a huge number.
Right. So we're working with the city on options to deal with that. We do know that there is a phase 2 of restart funding, that we were successful in receiving funds in the first round. We're yet waiting to hear the outcome of what phase 2 restart funding will help support all the cities. There is a transit bucket, as you may know, that gives us funding from October 1st right through to March 31st to help support these revenue losses and the added costs of our response as well. So that's the thing.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move to speakers, and Commissioner Bradford has a motion.
Thanks very much, Madam Chair, and thanks to Mark and Kathleen and Eric and everybody who's been involved in putting all of this together. Fantastic, thorough report and good direction going forward. So as the Chair mentioned, 2 motions here that are really just intended to enhance our next steps on surface transit for 2021. The first piece focuses on youth engagement. I think it's really fantastic that we've seen the TTC reaching out to youth across the city with a creative approach on consulting for the annual service plan. I know that if we go back, the idea behind this originally stemmed from a council request for youth to be involved with the rollout of Eglinton East Rapid TO. So, you know, circling back on where we started with that, I'd like to see the youth engagement team continue. And particularly, I'd like to see outreach in some of our underrepresented and under-consulted neighborhoods. So that's the intention there. The second piece is calling for a more robust accounting of the progress on our bus priority initiative. I noticed that the plan here does talk about the status of bus transit lanes and marked as complete based on rapid TO across Eglinton. And, you know, that's fantastic. I'm very glad to see that as we all are here at the commission. But we know that there's a lot more work to be done on this file. And as the board recalls, you know, there's 4 additional priority corridors that we adopted in the 5-year plan: Jane, Steeles, Finch, Dufferin, with Lawrence East added as well. So I want to make sure that the future updates on implementation do reflect where we are in respect to those additional work streams as well, because I think it's important to keep account of that also. More broadly, I'd like to just start off by acknowledging the unprecedented challenges that we've been having here at the TTC. And as our team has been facing putting together this service plan for 2021, I think when we look at balancing future priorities with COVID ridership changes, that certainly hasn't been easy. We just heard from Ms. Josie Lavita there that the challenges will continue very much so into 2021. And I think the service plan that we have here reflects that hard work, the public consultation, and the fiscal realities that we are going to be facing as a commission going forward. In particular, the ridership data stood out to me because it continues to show how vital surface transit has been, in particular to supporting our local communities as this transit system and our city moves from the immediate crisis response into recovery. We know here that surface transit has always been a really foundational and critical component of the service that we deliver here. It's not always the most high profile, it's not always the most celebrated, but you've seen during the pandemic that surface transit has been an absolute workhorse for the TTC, getting people around all of their necessary trips. Our frontline workers, folks who have to make those vital trips during the course of the pandemic, surface transit is what they've been turning to. And especially in the further reaches of our very big and broad municipality here in Toronto. That is going to continue going forward in both the short term and the medium term. And our planning and our service needs to be responsive and reflect that. I think I'll just close by saying that despite all of the uncertainty and the challenges that we'll be working through in the coming year, I am very pleased and grateful to see a number of the actions moving forward here today accounted for in the 21 plan. And now as a city, we got to make sure that we've got the funding and the resources, working with the other levels of government to deliver on the promise of all of this over the next 12 months. So that's it for me. Back over to you, Madam Chair.
Very much. Commissioner Carroll is next.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I don't have any motions to move. I support the motions that the previous commissioner moved, but I wanted to thank staff because this is a difficult time. How do you service plan when there is nothing normal out there? But I asked my questions because I am really concerned now about the planning for when Line 5 is up and running, because if I go back to the beginning, when the negotiation happened to get Eglinton Crosstown back on the books and going ahead as a project, at that time, whenever we were dealing with a planning application along the line up along Shepherd, where subway intensification was happening, and people would talk about traffic patterns and transit and what about the bus routes? It's all very well to have a subway, but here's a 40-story building. Really struggling conversations, and they stretch all the way out to Shepherd West, where although it's not 40 stories, there's lots of intensification going on all the way out beyond Bathurst. And in every one of those conversations for years now, we've been told, well, yes, we had the applicant do a traffic study, but it's kind of hard to take into account their north-south details because they're not studying normal. The backups that happen, particularly during morning peak, are impacted all the way up to Steeles in the case of some streets. Don Mills, Victoria Park, and particularly Leslie and Bayview can sometimes be impacted all the way up to Steeles by whatever is going on in a crosstown construction site intersection. So it's been a frustration, I think, for you as well, Madam Chair. Your residents are right in the thick of it. And so I really wanted to say that although we have not normal circumstances in the least, some of those earlier promises of don't worry, we're setting aside funds, we're going to be doing traffic studies, we're going to be modeling transit ridership changes and what that means to the car traffic that would like to go back to being able to use those north-south routes, to be able to have the valves that they lost for a while that they used to use whenever there was an incident on the parkway. They could get off and drive through Leaside or get off and go all the way downtown on Victoria Park. All of those valves that used to be there left for a while because of the crosstown. And there was lots of talk, if I go back 7-8 years, don't worry, we're putting money away for the studies. I'm not so sure that money's there anymore. Here we are looking at $750 million gap. So I just want to make sure that in 2021, with all our challenges, we are also going back to looking at those things we knew we were going to have to look at as we got closer to opening Line 5, and that there is a really open flow of communication, because where traffic study monies have been set aside, often they've been set aside in another silo over there in planning and reserve accounts to do with the various sections of the Planning Act. And we need to pool it all now and make sure that we don't open Line 5 and then have bus riders and car drivers alike cursing this beautiful new line. We need to make sure that everyone's able to move as a result of it being in completion. And I think that's got to be for the second half of 2021. It's got to be added into the plan in some meaningful way. Thank you. Those are my comments, Madam Chair.
Other speakers on this item? I haven't received any emails, or the clerk has not. I'll just speak, and if anybody else wants to speak, you can speak right after. I just think the TTC's done such a great job keeping our city moving. As someone said, this has been a very challenging year, and it's a real testament of our strength as a team. And the flexibility, the resilience of our staff and of our system, and really the insight to drive the TTC towards the future. So I think this document is as others have said, detailed, thorough, comprehensive, very impressive. And I want to thank Kathleen and her entire team, an amazing team, for pulling this together despite that layer of COVID that we're all experiencing. And I just think it's a lot of credit needs to be given for the versatility of our transit system. And just as service dropped across our subway and streetcar systems, buses have emerged as a flexible, responsible, responsive mode of transit, and on and on and on. I could talk about this for hours, but I just think we've managed this year, or the TTC staff have managed this year so impressively, given the nonstop challenges that the system has faced. So kudos to everybody, and we look forward to seeing this implemented. And just thank you very much to the whole team. So on that note, unless there's any other speakers, I think we should move ahead, because we just have one item ahead of us. So I need a motion to adopt the staff recommendations. No, actually, let's do Councillor Bradford's motion first. So let's get that up on the screen. I don't think this is overly controversial for anyone, so but it's up to you to vote as you feel. So hands up if you're for this. Against? That carries. Now with that, the amended staff recs we need to adopt those. All in favor? Against? That carries. All right, again, thank you to the whole staff team on that annual service plan. And we're moving to item 12, which is the 2021 schedule of meetings. And we have, I believe, one deputant on this. So I'll throw it to our clerk to facilitate that.
Hi, Chair. Sorry, we have item 11.
Oh, I thought we dealt with that. I'm sorry. Do you recall who held that?
Commissioner Min Wong.
Ah, okay. So let's have him. Do you have any questions for staff?
Yeah, sure. I do. So this is for parts for the buses, yes? The Volvo buses?
Yes, it's Josie here. Yes, Commissioner.
Yeah. Are most of these parts proprietary to Volvo? Like, do we have to buy the parts from Volvo, or are they parts that, you can get from, like, not exactly Canadian Tire, but the bus version of Canadian Tire?
So they're a combination. I'll start, and maybe some of my procurement staff can follow up. But essentially, a lot of these are called OEM parts, and they are proprietary.
That's the technical term.
Right. And so we have begun a process where we're looking at where we can get alternate parts. The ones that are before you can't be sourced at this time for an alternate provision. But man, there are many parts, and these ones are not ones that are available to us in an alternate way. You may recall the Auditor General having a recommendation to actually look at this. We've begun that program. We've started looking with our folks in operations and our vehicles program to see what parts are possible, because they have to go through, in fact, a whole safety review to make sure that they're applicable. But when the understanding is when they're manufactured, the OEM parts are the ones that are identified. So it's up to us to go through a due diligence process to see if the other parts work.
Yeah, so that's like, I can buy if I go into the dealership and buy an oil filter, I spend $20, where if I go into MotorMaster at Canadian Tire, it's like $7, right? I think that's what we're talking about here. But what I do want to kind of talk about right now is there's some parts you can't get at Canadian Tire that you've got to go to the dealership. And since we know we're keeping these buses for like 10 years, have we ever thought of negotiating within the contract when we purchase, we enter into a purchase agreement, like for these 50 or 65 diesel hybrids, that we should be getting those specialized parts that we know we're going to need to replace at some point in time over those, 10 or 12 years over the life of the vehicle. Have we ever looked at the idea of, getting a deal or some sort of preferential treatment at the front end and just keeping the parts?
So I believe that this has been done. I am not the expert on what's happened in the past. I'm not sure if someone from procurement or maybe Rich is available to answer that question.
Through the chair, we have looked at that. We go through some of the specialty parts like panels and stuff like that. We increase the spare ratio on some of those parts just to make sure that we're covered for those future years. I don't know about negotiating with the OEMs to keep stock on hand for the entire 10 years, but we do start to factor that in the later years, and then we buy extras.
So I don't know if that's a yes or a yes or a no.
Well, we go through, so when I think the way it happens is that our staff looks in partnership with the procurement staff, look at the usage and which are the high usage items, and based on the life cycle of those components. Like if it's a body panel, the life cycle can be short or it can be long depending if you have a collision. But on other parts like alternators and things like that, there is a life cycle to that.
Yeah.
Based on that life cycle, we know how many times we're going to have to change it out in that 10-year period, and we start to factor that in over the years.
Have you done life cycle analysis to see how much, what averaged out what the life cycle costs of these vehicles are?
We have in the past. We'd probably have to update that again.
That'd be interesting to see.
Especially with the new vehicles that we're getting now.
Okay. If you could get that to me, I'd be grateful. I'd just look. I mean,
yeah, we'd have to go through the exercise again.
Oh, do I need to move a motion or can I? Rick, are you there, Rick?
Yes, he's there.
For you, Madam Chair, there's no need to make a motion, Deputy Mayor. We'll do that a takeaway and we'll report back in the near future on where we are with that. We've done life cycle reviews when it comes to the number of the procurements, as you know, and we talked about the hybrid vehicle and the electric vehicle. But as Rich said, it's a good point now with these vehicles in to give that a second look and see where we are with it. So we'll get back on that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on this item, item 11? Seeing none, any speakers? Seeing none. Councillor Mendon-Wong, would you like to move to adopt the recommendations? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 12, our last item for today, 2021 schedule of meetings. We do have a deputation, and I will ask the clerk to facilitate that deputation.
Our deputant on this item is Alan Yule. We're just unmuting Alan, and you have 5 minutes. Just one moment.
Hi there, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Please proceed. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. You'll be happy to know, Madam Chair, it's only 12 slides and not my usual 35. This meeting schedule lists a total of 8 meetings for the TTC's board. Historically, during a non-election year, there have been 11 monthly meetings of the TTC board. We now have a proposed schedule that is a 28% reduction from the number of board meetings from just 3 years ago, and a 20% reduction from the number of scheduled meetings from this year to next. This year, we lost our March meeting, and if approved, we will lose our January and October meetings as well next year. This meeting is only 4 weeks from the last one, and it has 14 agenda items on it, and look at the time now. This committee was preceded by the Audit and Risk Management Committee meeting that started at 8 a.m. Do you really want a 12-hour meeting day? Less meetings means more agenda items per meeting. 28% meeting reduction could equal 40% increase in agenda items. We are proposing to reduce the number of meetings for a year that will have significant ridership and other transit challenges. We have 4 scheduled meetings of the Audit and Risk Committee Management Committee and no scheduled meetings of the Budget Committee. But wait, you say, we don't have a Budget Committee, except according to the TT Zone website, as of this morning, we still have a Budget Committee. It just hasn't met there, but it's still. The TTC's ridership numbers will not fully recover for at least until at least 2022. We have at least 3 more budget cycles where there will be harder than normal budgetary issues for the TTC to deal with. We will need the support of the general public to get through them. Having the public truly involved gives the board support it needs when it goes to the rest of City Council or when it's going to the province or federal governments for assistance. As long as just with the schedule, we should also look at how we do our meetings as well, specifically item 1 on the monthly agenda. Prior to February 2015, item 1 of the CEO's report was an action item. This change was unilaterally done by TTC staff and not by the board. I won't go into the colorful events of January 2015's meeting, but there were angry British ears as red as the side of a streetcar. Having the CEO's report as it is may eliminate public deputations, but it also removes your opportunity as board members to do anything but rant at the CEO's report. Today's CEO's report was 97 pages long. As it stands, you could do nothing to affect the changes to the plans and procedures as outlined in this report. No motions are allowed for information items, and the last month's meeting is a reminder of that. I'm also concerned that we are making it harder for members of the public to participate, and this is never good. Posting the agenda for Monday's meeting on Thursday morning and having a deadline to sign up to depute at noon the next day, this can disenfranchise Toronto citizens from their opportunity to speak to this very important agenda item, and I find that disgusting. Thank you.
I have a question, I think, for the deputant from Commissioner Carroll.
Oh, Madam Speaker, I'll ask the CEO questions on behalf of the deputant.
Okay. Okay, so go ahead.
Thank you. So Rick, maybe you'd like a chance to explain why 8 meetings?
For you, Madam Chair. There's been a number of discussions over the last year with many different commissioners on the number of reports that we have going to the board. There's been a lot of comments about the fact that there's a lot of detail, and people have recognized there's a lot of time associated with preparing for these reports and laying them out. We had a discussion with the chair about the number that we had last year, and then we knew that there wasn't one in January. We talked about what would be the optimum number coming into 2021, as well as looking forward in 2022. We know that in October, that it's typically a month with very few, the least number of reports going in. And so I made the recommendation to the chair that we looked at 8. And that's how that number came about, a little discussion with many individuals.
Okay, so, but well, there are no meetings. If we only have 8 meetings and there are spaces left throughout the year, we still have the ability to call special meetings if need be, and you have the ability, along with the chair, to call a meeting when you think we need to gather, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have the ability to call a special meeting, absolutely. And at all times, as you recall, even the months we don't have meetings, we submit to the Board of CEO report as well.
Yeah. So for instance, I mean, we're going to go on the Christmas break right now, and the numbers today are absolutely terrible. With fewer tests, we have way bigger numbers. So we could be in a situation where you've got to call a meeting, but you have no problem whatsoever with doing that. And 8 meetings leaves you lots of room to do so, right?
That is correct, Commissioner.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you. And I believe Commissioner Osborne, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. Just one clarification, because in my long tenure here at the board, we've had all these meetings scheduled, and then we always seem to add one in December for the budget. And I'm assuming that that 9th meeting will be added at some point when we have the timing. Is that correct?
That is correct, Commissioner.
Okay.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. Any speakers on this item? We'll move this item and move to adopt the staff recommendations noted in the report. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries, and that ends our meeting for today. Thank you, everyone, for your time and energy and efforts. And I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Okay, I'm going to pick Commissioner
Adjourn 2020.
Osborne. I'm picking Commissioner Osborne because she puts her hand up very effectively. Thank you, and we are adjourned. We'll see
Thanks,
you
Madam
next
Chair.
week. We'll see you Monday.
Happy COVID holidays.